This is Elliot Rodger, a young man who was clearly very troubled throughout his lifetime, displaying a series of issues in mental health, built-up hatred, and rage and uncontrollable emotions. As a result of this, over the course of many years, he would go on to initiate a series of heinous, unforgivable crimes. And yet, he became somewhat of a controversial figure online, with some people actually looking up to him, although it is very clear that he is not someone that should be admired in any way.
I'm polite. I'm the ultimate gentleman. And yet, you girls, you never give me a chance. I don't know why. I will deny all of you life. It's only fair.
So what happened? What went wrong for Elliot Rodger? It all started when a woman named Lee Chin, who was born in 1961 in Penang, Malaysia, decided to move to England quite early in her life. She then became a nurse and eventually started taking roles on film sets, which would lead her to meet the man who would later become her husband, Peter Rodger. Peter Rodger was born on 1965 over in the UK and grew up to be a British filmmaker, photographer, and commercial director. The two eventually got together and had their first child in July 24th, 1991, who would go on to be Elliot Oliver Robertson Rodger. The family lived in the United Kingdom for a little while, but later moved to California in 1996. And their second child was born this same year, a girl named Georgia. As they moved to California, Elliot was so excited he could barely contain himself as he observed his surroundings and took in the scenery. He couldn't believe how nice the place was. As the family arrived at the new house, Elliot was eager to head upstairs in search of his new room. After finally signaling out a room that he wanted and told his mother, she told him that this room was going to be for his little sister Georgia. This upset Elliot and made him jealous of his little sister. Eventually he settled for the room next to it. The family lived in quite a big house that had a swimming pool area in the backyard, located in an upscale part of Woodland Hills. 5-year-old Elliot considered this the start of a new journey and told his parents that he wanted to become an American kid now. So he watched all sorts of American TV shows and quickly adopted an American accent in order to start his new life. After extensive research, his father, Peter Rodger, had discovered a small private school called Pinecrest, where Elliot would begin to attend kindergarten there. But things wouldn't go too well there, as he had a very unpleasant teacher who was unhappy with how far behind he was with his work, because he missed a few months due to moving. During break time, the teacher would make him stay behind in class to catch up on missed work, and his parents didn't like this teacher's behavior, so they ended up moving him to another nearby private school, named Farm School. A boy named Joey was assigned to show him around the school, which became his first friend, but it didn't take long for things to change, and Elliot would go on to describe him as a rotten little prick, who I always got into fights with. Joey then became his greatest enemy. Ironically for Elliot, the first real friend he made was a girl named Maddie Humphreys, and seeing as her father was a famous British musician, her parents ended up becoming good friends with Elliot's. This allowed them to play at each other's house, and they grew so close that they even took baths together. Elliot then says,
"This is the only time in my life that I would see a girl my age naked."
After graduating from kindergarten, his 6th birthday followed shortly after. His parents decided to arrange a Disney-themed party at a play center where he invited everyone in his class, except for Joey, as a means of revenge, and says he felt a great satisfaction in doing so. During this period of time, he would often go out on afternoon trips to the park with his family, which turned out to be his favorite part of the day. But it wasn't all fun and joy. Elliot wasn't able to use the swings in the park by himself without his dad pushing the swing. But as he looked around, he saw other kids using the swing by themselves, causing Elliot to feel jealous and envious of the other kids in the park. This was the first time he would experience such emotions, realizing he had a lack of physical ability compared to some others. Later on, his family took a trip to the Universal Studios, which had a Jurassic Park themed ride, which he couldn't wait to get on. He queued up for an hour, but when the time came for him to go on the ride, he was denied access, as he didn't fit the height requirements. But looking on, he saw kids the same age all getting on the ride. This further increased his feelings of negative emotions, and he went into a crying tantrum, resulting in his mother carrying him away and comforting him. Throughout this time, Maddie Humphreys remained a very close friend. Sometimes when he came over to her house, she would have other girls over, and Elliot got along with them just fine. In fact, he would get along with the girls better than the boys at this age. This would soon change as his parents decided to move to Topanga, and he started elementary school there, which would be some of the best years of his life. In his new school, he would go on to make two good friends named James and Philip, where they would play war games and tag together. James would remain his best friend for the next 14 years of his life. As Christmas arrived, Elliot would receive a present that would have a big impact on his life: a Nintendo 64 game console. He had little knowledge of video games at this point in time, and was fascinated by this new form of entertainment. As time went on, Elliot began to witness his mum and dad arguing more often, and this is where he first heard of the concept of divorce. Two parents separating and no longer living together. The prospect left him scared and confused. He sat down with his mother outside and asked if she would ever divorce. She reassured him and told him it would never happen, and he felt a massive sense of relief. His 7th birthday quickly came fast, and this would be the last time he ever saw his parents happy together. Unfortunately, this happiness would not last long, as not long after, his mum would indeed give him the news that despite what she said earlier, her and his dad are getting a divorce. This felt like a huge betrayal for Elliot, and was a big turning point in his life. He felt outraged and overwhelmed by the news. Elliot and his little sister Georgia would go on to live with their mum, and would see their dad Peter during the weekends, and he would also have to pay child support. Elliot would now have to spend his life growing up in two different households, as if starting a new life over again, just like when he first moved to the US. Elliot's new house with his mother was much smaller, and he had to share a room with his sister and sleep on a bunk bed. The change was very uncomfortable for him and not something he was used to, but it eventually became a cheerful, fun environment due to his mother's kind and loving nature. Peter would soon go through financial troubles and would be forced to move into a smaller house. And one day, when he came to pick up Elliot and bring him over, he would soon meet a very important person in his life. A woman with dark hair standing in the kitchen. She introduced herself as Sumaya, a Moroccan actress who was to become Elliot's stepmother. Elliot then writes,
My father having a girlfriend so shortly after divorcing mother didn't even occur to me. I couldn't understand it. Soon enough, though, I realized that Sumaya was in fact his girlfriend, and that they were together, just like how mother and father were together. It was the first time I learned the concept of a girlfriend, and it was hard to grasp. Father finding a new girlfriend in such a short amount of time baffled me.
Because of this, Elliot got the impression that his father was a man that woman wanted to be with, and for that he held his father in higher regard. After getting used to his new stepmother, she began to discipline him. However, he felt that she had no right to do so, seeing as she wasn't his real mother. As a result of this, he began to rebel, and tension arose between the two, which only grew over the years. During this time, he started exhibiting very strange behavior which worried his parents. He would stare into the distance, in the same spot every day, and would avoid speaking as much as possible, even going as far as to write notes instead. He was taken to see many therapists and wasn't officially diagnosed with any conditions, although it was suspected that he was showing symptoms of Asperger's syndrome or autism. At 9 years old, he would start to observe the world in a different manner. He started 4th grade and was already feeling inferior to others, as he was the shortest kid in his class. Even the girls were taller than him, and this angered him inside greatly, especially after observing that the taller boys seemed to be respected more. Desperate to get taller, he read that playing basketball increases your height, so he began spending a lot of time playing basketball, at home in his father's court. One day, he played it at school and some other boys joined him. This is when he realized that they could all throw the ball double the distance he could, realizing that along with being short, he was also significantly weaker than other kids his age, and even the younger kids. This caused him to envy the other boys, while a fire stirred within him as his inferiority complex began to grow. His jealous nature was quickly growing into something much worse. When playing with his friend James, sometimes James would have other friends over and pay more attention to them, leaving him feeling jealous and left out. And when Maddie came over, she would often play with his little sister Georgia instead of him, making him even more jealous. At the same time, Elliot started having intense conflicts with Samaya, as he hated the rules she imposed on him. He hated how she forced him to drink milk every morning, and a foul-tasting soup for dinner. One time he invited Philip to his father's house, and yelled at his sister for annoying him. As punishment, Samaya sent him to his room for an hour, embarrassing him greatly in front of Philip. Afterwards, he would never invite a friend to his father's house again. The conflicts grew to the point that Elliot would dread having to go to his father's house, and would only love spending time at his mother's house. As 4th grade came to an end, he would have another revelation about how the world works, realizing that there are hierarchies which he first noticed during his time at school. There are always a group of cool kids and uncool kids. This is when he started examining himself and discovered that he wasn't cool at all. This decreased his self-esteem, and he also started to become aware that he is half white and half Asian, which made him feel different to the other white kids he was trying to fit in with. He then decided to dye his hair blonde, thinking blonde people were more beautiful than others. He would then start copying the cool kids who at the time were into skateboarding. Despite all his attempts to copy them, he didn't feel as though they respected him. As a result, he was still an outcast. After middle school began, he started to realize that a lot of the cool kids were popular with girls, although he thought of them as obnoxious jerks, but tried his best to hide his disgust in order to appear cool among them. Initially, things went well, as some of the popular kids would get a hug from some of the girls as a greeting, and Elliot would get to experience this too, with him expressing that it was the best feeling ever, although he didn't know why that is. But this would turn out to be the only form of female interaction he would get. When he was 11 years old, he started using the internet regularly and began talking to people through social media, and one of his new friends that he met in a chat room sent him some pictures of naked women. The sights would shock him and fill him with strange emotions he had never felt before, with him stating that his childhood was fading away and he was traumatized. He then stopped speaking to that friend completely and began to shut himself in. During summer break, Elliot's mum and dad decided to make him attend summer camp as a good opportunity for him to socialize with others. It was in this camp that he would have his first incident with a girl that would scar him for life. While playing with his friends during the summer camp, he accidentally bumped into a girl the same age as him, and she got very angry and pushed him and hurled insults at him. He immediately froze and went into a state of shock. He then went on to say,
"Cruel treatment from women is 10 times worse than from men. It made me feel like an insignificant, unworthy little mouse. I felt so small and vulnerable. I couldn't believe that this girl was so horrible to me, and I thought that it was because she viewed me as a loser."
From this point onwards, Elliot would be extremely wary and cautious around girls. Even the movie theaters, which was once a place of joy, became a place of dread, after he realized it was a popular activity for young couples to go to the movies together, and since he couldn't go with a girl himself, he no longer enjoyed the theaters. On one afternoon, Samaya and his father revealed the news that she was now pregnant, and they were going to be having a child. Surprisingly, Elliot was happy to hear the news, and welcomed the idea of another sibling, which would soon change. As time went on, Elliot slowly stopped seeing his friends, as they got bored of meeting up at the internet cafe Planet Cyber to play games. But enjoying Warcraft 3 at the time, he often found himself staying at Planet Cyber by himself, all the way till late in the night. And on one night, he happened to stumble across an older teenager watching porn. It was his first time seeing what sex was. This stirred up all sorts of emotions for him, leaving him traumatized and aroused at the same time. He then went home and cried by himself about what he had seen. When Christmas came along, he decided to go shopping with his dad and buy the new World of Warcraft game that had just come out a few weeks ago. After creating his account and designing his character, he realized that this game was like starting a whole new life for him, a life that was better than his current one. This game would then serve to fill the void he felt in life, as he sunk deeper into the depths of despair. In fact, he became so obsessed with World of Warcraft that he forgot he would have to start high school very soon. After picturing what it would look like based on his previous experiences at middle school, he knew it would be bad, and he didn't want to have to deal with the cruelty of girls in high school. He imagined it would be worse than anything he had ever experienced, so he begged his father to send him to Crespi Carmelite High School, a Catholic all-boys school. After submitting an application, he was soon accepted. During the summer break, he planned to spend the whole time playing World of Warcraft and forgetting about everything else. That is, until he was forced to go on a trip to Morocco for 8 weeks with his father and Sumaya. After an unpleasant trip to Morocco, he arrived back home in the US and had to get ready to start high school, but school had already started while he was in Morocco, so once again he would be seen as the new kid. Upon arriving on the first day with his father, he was scared at the sight of all the taller boys and began crying, refusing to get out of the car. Eventually he mustered up the courage to walk into school, and within the first week, he began to get bullied by some 12th graders who threw food at him. To make matters worse, 2 of the kids who attended Pinecrest at the same time as Elliot decided to tell everyone how weird he was, and that made things even harder for him, because now he had people insulting him for being afraid of girls, and other students would steal his possessions. It got to the point that he would wait in a quiet corner to make sure the hallway was clear before entering class. When winter break came, Elliot discovered the act of masturbation, which became an addiction for him, as he would look at pictures of girls on the internet at the same time. He then goes on to say,
This was the start of hell for me. Going through puberty utterly doomed my existence. It condemned me to live a life of suffering and unfulfilled desires. Even at that young age, I felt depressed because I wanted sex, yet I felt unworthy of it. I didn't think I was ever going to experience it in reality, and I was right. I never did. I was finally interested in girls, but there was no way I could ever get them, and so my starvation began.
The boys in his school were also talking about it a lot, saying they had already done it with their girlfriends, which Elliot couldn't comprehend, so he began to hate everyone from the bottom of his heart, all the while hiding it and retreating to his safe haven of World of Warcraft. His grades began to drop, he had no social life outside of Warcraft, and he felt that this single game was his only purpose in life. The very last day of 9th grade was the worst. One of his classmates was bragging about sleeping with his girlfriend, to which Elliot called him out for being a liar, and that's when he showed him an audio recording as proof, while grinning at Elliot. At this moment he was called into the office, and his mother took him home. He cried and told her what had happened, and that was the last day he attended Crespi Carmelite High School. Soon afterwards came the news that he was going to be attending Taft High School, which had 5 times as many students as Crespi, and was a public school with girls in it that had a bad reputation. He had never felt so scared in his life. With things getting worse at home, Sumaya would begin to worry about Elliot spending time alone with his new brother Jazz. As she says to Elliot, "I don't trust you around Jazz, because he told me that you told him that girls are bad, and that he should hate them, and hit them if they tried to come near." This clearly shows that he was trying to negatively influence Jazz by pushing his hateful ideals onto him. At this time, you can already see that Elliot is quite far gone and is very mentally unstable, but it only gets worse as time goes on. As it was time to start his first day at Taft High School, he was so afraid that he begged his parents not to make him go, and his dad ended up dragging him out of the car to go there. On the first week, he was immediately bullied on numerous occasions. He was used to wearing the polo shirt and khaki pants from his old private school, and was seen as a nerd for doing so. Some boys pushed him into the lockers as they walked past in the hallway, and others would call him names in front of the girls, and they would all laugh about it as if they were enjoying this cruel behavior. He began to think that all girls are evil and are attracted to evil, and this made him hate them the most. The next morning he broke down and cried in front of his mum, begging her to not take him there. Eventually she gave in and decided to take him to his father's house, so they could discuss what they should do with him. They then removed him from Taft, and he wouldn't go to school for a month, while they were deciding what to do with him. After a break, Elliot's parents decided to take him to a continuation high school known as Independence High School, where he would be at school for 3 to 4 hours a day, and then do the rest of the work at home. He thought this was the best choice as there was only 100 students, and he could spend more time shying himself away and playing games. At the same time, his father's career hadn't been as successful as it was a few years ago. He was making a documentary called Oh My God, where he would interview people all over the world asking them about their opinions on religion. He thought this would be his biggest success and invested all he had into the project, which unfortunately didn't turn out to be the case. While traveling for this project, Elliot would still have to stay the week at his house with Sumaya, and after his father hired a new nanny for Jazz, he would be forced to give up his downstairs room, which was the only thing he enjoyed at this house. Instead, it would become his father's new office, and the old office would be split into 2 bedrooms, one for Elliot and the other for the new nanny. This change really angered him, and he really started to hate going there. While staying with Sumaya, she made him do chores around the house, and would sometimes take away his laptop for a day or 2. He thought this was the worst thing she could possibly do, take away his only source of joy left in the world. And when his father got back, he didn't lift a finger to stop her. In the beginning of summer, Elliot would be introduced to someone he would hate, a boy named Leo Bubenheim, who had just moved to the US from Germany and had already made loads of friends and had a good social life. He was everything Elliot aspired to be: tall, blonde, good-looking, and a skateboarder. Later on at a pool party, Jazz fell in the water, and nobody noticed except Elliot, who panicked, but rushed in and saved his brother's life. He seemed to take pleasure in it, knowing that his brother gets to continue his life because of his choice to jump in the pool, and that his brother would never forget being saved. As time went on, Elliot became more and more depressed, and his mum eventually noticed this and set up a meeting for him to see his old friend Philip. When he got to Philip's house, he eventually found out that he was away on vacation, but his younger brother Jeffrey stayed at home, so Elliot stayed over with him. Jeffrey was now 14 and told Elliot that he has a girlfriend. This angered him, and he felt very envious of Jeffrey, thinking that someone below his level was able to get a girlfriend before him. At this point, Elliot began fantasizing about his dream girl, a hot blonde-haired girlfriend that he would do it with in his mind. It was bad enough to the point where he basically had an imaginary girlfriend. At this time, Elliot's father suffered from financial setback due to his movie not turning out as he planned. As a result, he abruptly cut off child support payments to Elliot's mother, forcing her to find a better paying job and to move houses once again. An exchange student from France then moved into his father's house, a 19-year-old boy named Max, who actually became good friends with Elliot. Eventually, Elliot would have an argument with Samaya in front of Max, making Elliot embarrassed once again. Not long afterwards, Max would return to France, never to be seen again. A few days later, Elliot's family met up with the Bubenheims, and Leo would then make out with a girl in front of Elliot, despite being only 12 years old. This filled Elliot with hatred towards Leo. On another day, the family was having dinner with the Bubenheims once again, and a bunch of popular kids came over and were talking about parties and how great their social life is. This caused Elliot to break down in tears, thinking his life would never be as good as anyone else's, and saying he wanted to end his life, forcing his family to spend 3 hours calming him down, to which he then kept everything else inside him and just retreated to playing World of Warcraft for up to 14 hours a day, almost every day. After all the misery, Elliot would receive some good news. A sudden invitation from Max to go visit him in France and stay with him for 3 weeks. Feeling anxious about having to take the trip alone, he was ready to say no, although he did really miss Max. Eventually, his father convinced him to go, and so he met up with Max at the airport, and would later be introduced to all his friends, and they would go to the bar and talk to girls. Elliot thought to himself, for once he is getting a faint taste of the good life for young people to hang out together, and that this is what everyone gets to experience. He felt extreme jealousy for everyone who experienced such things, and felt some happiness experiencing a taste for himself. Unfortunately for him, this happiness would not last, and the 3-week stay would quickly reach its end, forcing Elliot to make his way back to the US, where he would wallow in his own despair and sink further into depression, knowing that his taste of normal life is over and that he would never experience such things again. The new expansion for World of Warcraft was released, and Elliot started to realize that the game's ability to alleviate his sense of loneliness was starting to fade. He began to feel lonely and unwanted even while playing it, to the point where he started crying while playing. Elliot felt so inferior and undesirable. However, this time he felt as though he couldn't just stand by and accept such an injustice anymore. He says,
I refused to continue hiding away from the world and forgetting about all the insults it dealt me. I began to have fantasies of becoming very powerful and stopping everyone from having sex. I wanted to take their sex away from them just like they took it away from me. I saw sex as an evil and barbaric act, all because I was unable to have it. This was a major turning point. My anger made me stronger inside. This was when I formed my ideas that sex should be outlawed. It's the only way to make the world a fair and just place. If I can't have it, I will destroy it. That's the conclusion I came to right then and there. I have an exceptionally high level of intelligence. I see the world differently from anyone else. Because of all the injustices I went through and the worldview I developed because of them, I must be destined for greatness. I must be destined to change the world, to shape it into an image that suits me.
After this realization, he quit playing World of Warcraft entirely, and his father's movie finally released, and it didn't perform well, causing a significant loss for him financially, and he would begin to say he was in a financial crisis, which angered Elliot, as he thought just when he needed his father's support the most, he lost all his assets, as if a greater being cursed him and condemned him to live a pathetic existence. After finishing high school, he had all the time in the world to think about his plans and dive deeper into the depths of despair. He would frequently go for walks around town, examine everything and see how hopeless it all was. Whenever he saw a young couple walking around, his anger would intensify exponentially, and he considered his life a living hell. It got to the point where he started recording his own reactions after observing a couple outside, and he was struggling to keep his hatred inside.
I'm so angry right now. I was enjoying a peaceful time at this beach park, and what comes to sit in front of me? A young couple, a guy with his hot girlfriend. I mean, who do they think they are? Coming here, sitting in front of me to make me feel jealous? This is the reason why I hate the world. This is getting too out of hand. I can't go anywhere anymore without seeing these young couples getting jealous and having them remind me of what I'm lacking in life. How can I feel a sense of pride when I go out, knowing that I'll see guys with their girlfriends? I mean, look at them. Who do they think they are? Everywhere I go, I'm all alone. And I have to see other guys experience this world with girlfriends at their side. Like this couple right here. I hate them. I mean, this world is such a spectacular place, full of adventure and discovery. But I'm not allowed to experience it. Because everywhere I go, I have to be insulted by the sight of young couples reminding me of what I lack. Because no girl wants to be my girlfriend. Oh, he thinks he's better than me. Everyone probably sees me alone and then sees that guy with his girlfriend, and they think that he's better than me because a girl chose him over me. I can't go anywhere anymore and feel a sense of pride in myself because of this. I hate them.
His parents began to notice how negative he was becoming and decided to concoct a plan to change his life for the better. However, Elliot, on the other hand, was only able to see things from a negative perspective. So he convinced himself that they wanted to get rid of him because he was hard to deal with. And they decided to send him to Morocco with Sumaya, thinking it would help him. But this just made him think he was right about them wanting to get rid of him. As the day of the flight arrived, he knew that protesting against it would come to no avail, so he hatched a plan to run away early that morning. So he told his dad he was going for a walk, and as soon as he left the house, he began running. But after turning the first corner, he realized his dad was on his tail right behind him, and so he gave up and accepted defeat. The trip was so miserable, and he felt that his life was over with nothing to live for. After arriving, he then hatched an idea to spam his mum with emails about how miserable he was, in hopes that she would come get him. Some of the leaked emails are as follows.
Dear Mom, I am writing to you from a cyber cafe because the internet they have does not work for my computer, so I can't use it. Mom, the pain I am going through right now is unbearable. I had a horrible trip here, traveling with Sumaya as hell. Sumaya has told me things that shook me to the very core. She said that you plan on forcing me to stay here for a whole year, that there is no return slip, and that you lied to me about my freedom to return home when I want, which is now.
He then sent another email the next day.
How can you lie to me, Mom? I cannot trust anyone. I feel so alone. I feel like the main reason I am here is so you both can be rid of me. You didn't even check to see if Tanger was right for me. You just listened to Dad's exaggerations. He doesn't know anything. I hate it here. It is not the right environment for me. Everything is dirty. All I hear is people speaking in a different language. Everyone gives me a strange stare when I walk in public. All I think about is home. I put a blindfold on and plug my ears to pretend I am somewhere else. This is worse than my last time here. At least then I had Georgia to talk to. Now I am all alone. I am going crazy, Mom. This is the worst pain I have ever felt. I want to die, but I am scared to try because I might fail and suffer more. I am giving up on life. I am just going to do nothing and dream of home.
Then another email.
Mom, I am speaking from my heart. I know I made mistakes in the past, but if you come and take me home, I will try so hard to turn things around. Please give me a second chance at life. I promise I will be nice to my sister and do everything I can to prove myself.
The next day, he sent another email.
Please come and take me home. You will even see for yourself that this place is not right for me. I will even pay for it with all the money I have. Please do this one thing for me, Mom. Or even book me a ticket home, and I will come myself. Being here has made me realize how great my home and life in America is. I will do everything I can to turn things around if you give me one more chance. Just one more chance. Please do this one thing for me, Mom. I picture it in my mind, seeing you come meet me here and take me home. It will be the best thing in the world. It's all I think about. I don't know how long I can hold the pain in. I hate it here. It's driving me crazy every moment I feel like crying.
Another email the next day.
I hate it here, Mom. It is hell. The worst experience of my life. Please, Mom, I cannot stay here any longer. Please do this for me, Mom. Come and take me home. All I want to do here is die. You are my only hope. You cannot imagine the pain I am going through. Sending this email sparks a little hope in me. I cannot talk to you as much as I wished because I have to go to a dirty cyber cafe to email you. Please reply as soon as possible. Please, Mom.
After a week of this, his mum eventually gave in and flew over to take him home, where he would feel a sense of victory and forget his troubles temporarily, only to then be reminded of them again after arriving back in the US. He continued his walks and watched as young couples lined up to see the movies, boiling with hatred as he does so, contemplating life and thinking about becoming powerful enough to punish everyone he hates. Being blind and not noticing his downward spiral in this world, nor did he prepare him for such a hard world, Elliot then lost respect for his father. After a long day of crying, he decided to spend the next whole day in deep meditation, calming himself down. It was at this moment a glimmer of hope could be seen. Elliot reviewed his entire life and realized he can't give up on having the life he wants without trying to get it, and that he was still only 17, so he has lots of time to spare. He then told his parents that he was willing to make a change, and they seemed happy that he wasn't being negative for once. He decided to change his appearance, getting a new haircut and shopping for some clothes. Afterwards, he made a Facebook profile in an effort to improve his social life, but after being lost in his own world for the last few years, he didn't know anything about these social media platforms. After thinking about what he would do with his life and how he would achieve something, he decided to further pursue his education, starting the new semester at Pierce College, studying computer class. After Samaya returned from Morocco, she was very angry with how he acted during the trip, and she then took it upon herself to kick him out of his father's house, seeing as he is now 18 and she is allowed to do so. His father didn't say a word to try and stop her, and he thought it was because he was a weak man, giving her all the power to impose her rules around the house. She even banned him from coming over for a short visit, so now his permanent residence became his mum's house. This felt like the biggest betrayal from his father, and this was the moment he completely lost all respect for him. Up until now, from age 15, Elliot had been prescribed Xanax and Prozac regularly, but slowly stopped taking them as frequently, and on certain occasions, he would take Paxil. For instance, if he was to attend a party or a place with large crowds. But as time went on, he would try to rely on his positive thinking to overcome his shyness and anxiety, as the pills would make him feel very drowsy. On Halloween, he was desperate to do something social. After stalking some random people on Facebook, he found out that there was going to be a big party in West Hills. He decided to attend this party, even though he knew nobody there. He walked 45 minutes to get to the venue and was immediately overcome by anxiety. But he knew he had to go in after coming all this way, so he paid a $5 entry fee and went inside. To his surprise, the party turned out smaller than expected, and everybody knew each other, so after standing awkwardly for a few minutes, he decided to give up and go back home. On his way home, a group of young intoxicated teens drove by, throwing eggs at him, where he then picked up one of the shells and threw it back at the car. They then got out and tried to attack him, but he managed to scare them off by pulling out his pocket knife. He then ran home terrified. Thinking back to this incident with the thugs, he decided he didn't want to be seen as weak. This led him to start lifting weights at the gym in his mother's apartment complex, in an attempt to build some strength and confidence for the girls to find him more attractive. After a few months, Sumaya eventually allowed him back into the house, where he would have dinner with his dad, although he was still very angry with him, but decided to hide it as he still needed him. To make up for this, Dad offered to teach him how to drive after he received his driver's permit. After some time, he succeeded and was able to start driving. His newfound hope slowly began to waver as his attempt at improving his life seemed futile. He wasn't making any progress. He felt frustrated and angry, and had no friends or interactions with any girls. Elliot's mother hosted a small get-together by the beach, and to Elliot's surprise, Maddie Humphreys came over. It was his first time seeing her in over 6 years. She was now a full-grown teenager, a typical pretty girl who was very popular. Elliot felt that she was looking down on him after becoming popular, and after attempting to talk to her, his first childhood friend, she seemed very weirded out by his awkwardness. He then thought that she was now one of the people he despises the most. He then invited Philip and Addison over, and Addison would go on to tell them how he succeeded in becoming popular and the time he spent at different parties. Elliot then felt like his attitude towards them changed and he started being cocky and arrogant. After some time, Addison ditched them to go to a party with some girls, leaving Elliot boiling with rage. He then noticed later on that Addison had deleted him from his Facebook friends list. In response to this, he sent Addison a hateful message saying,
"He is a disgusting and treacherous little bastard."
After all this, Elliot's newfound optimism about life subsided, and he began to feel intense anger and hatred towards the world again, thinking that no matter what he did, the world always saw him the same way, as a complete loser. This caused him to think back on his political and philosophical ideals he came up with when he was 17, and once again was fueled to continue down this path, wanting to punish anyone who was sexually active, because he concluded that it wasn't fair other people were able to experience it, and he couldn't. He started to desire a world where no one is allowed to have a relationship, and that reproduction can be accomplished through artificial insemination. Elliot's mum, Lee Chin, continued requesting that he get a job, although he refused every job that was offered to him, thinking that working in retail or any sort of service job was beneath him, as he thought of himself as an intellectual who was destined for greatness. His father then offered him a job building a staircase with one of his friends not far from where they live. Elliot then accepted as it was more of a private job, and he thought of it as assisting a family friend rather than a job. After completing the staircase, Elliot decided to stop by his father's house. Because he was the eldest son, he thought it would be acceptable to walk straight in without knocking, but shortly after entering, Sumaya would order him to go back outside and knock, which he refused, and she then knocked a glass of water out of his hand, and his father Peter had to get involved. Of course, he would take Sumaya's side, and they would both ban him from coming to the house. After this incident, he wouldn't see his father for many months, as he would now hate him and no longer consider him a father. Shortly after this incident, his father would then email him, "Dear Elliot, all of us here were really upset by your attitude and behavior yesterday. The rudeness and lack of respect was upsetting indeed. Your language was really bad. There is no excuse to call anyone those words. No excuse in the whole world. You really can't just materialize and creep in unannounced anywhere, and then demand things without a certain social grace. That was what we were trying to explain to you, yet you ignored it, pushed and then became abusive. You hurt everyone's feelings, and I'm sure you are hurt too by the reaction that comes back when you push out hate. As soon as you realize that you have to act in this life with fairness, love and respect, you will be welcomed with open arms into this house and embraced. But you steadfast refuse to realize that you need to be respectful and not abusive, so there is a stalemate. This all has to be worked on, and you will find that when you start to treat people with fairness and kindness, and not harshly and with anger that is uncalled for, the happiness you seek will flood into your life, and you will become everything you desire. That is what you need to learn, and that is what I hope I can help teach you. With all my love and respect to you, you are loved. Try showing some back, and the world will open for you. I hope you begin to understand that. It is the biggest lesson of your life. Call me if you wish tomorrow, and explain how you feel. In the meantime, I think you understand what you did, and you have to find a place in your heart for love and not hate. So lots of love from me, your father, Dad. Elliot wasn't pleased to read this email. It only served to enrage him even more, and responded back with saying,
Dear Peter, it seems you have sent this message to the wrong person. You accuse me of showing bad attitude and behavior, rudeness and lack of respect when clearly it was your wife who did all these things. I just reacted accordingly. It's also funny how you accuse me of bad language when it was again your wife who uttered much more hurtful words towards me, such as calling me a dog and a thief for helping myself to a glass of water, which I should be able to do in your house. I have no excuse for calling her a bitch. I do not need one. I was merely stating the truth. I showed up at my family's house unannounced, yes, like I always do after a long bicycle ride to drop in and say hello. I am immediately greeted with attitude and insolent behavior from your wife, along with rudeness and lack of respect. She demanded that I go out and knock as if I should be taught a lesson like a little child. That is how you two view me, and that has to change if you ever want my respect. After that whole instance, I receive a call from your wife telling me that she is going to report me to the police. Good luck with that. I committed absolutely no crime, and that you are going to testify as a witness. No respectable father would do such a thing, even if their son broke in through a window. The entire email of accusations you just sent me is an accurate caricature of your inexorable devotion and loyalty to your wife, and lack of respect for me. No matter how wicked her actions are, you are always blind to her wrongs. It has been this way forever. You have always stood by her side when she has acted rude and unfair to me, and always justified her actions. I pity your weakness and lack of perspective in that. Judging from the text messages you sent my mother today, I have come to the conclusion that you view me as nothing more than a child and demented lunatic. My mother has no influence over my view towards your wife whatsoever, quite the contrary. Actually, my views towards her are based on the actions she has displayed towards me throughout the years. And now comes the part where you start listing down the good things she has done for me, completely disregarding the bad. You have no respect for me as a mature adult, and therefore I shall no longer have any respect for you until you apologize and admit your wrongs. Sincerely, Elliot.
His father Peter then responded back to him, Dear Elliot, and there lies the problem. Your unwillingness to understand. That is what has to be fixed. Love to you, Dad. Feeling the need to say more, Elliot responds again.
Dear Peter, the problem is your unwillingness to accept true perspective. Did you pay attention to anything I said in my last email? No, you did not, because you perceive me as a demented lunatic. I suspected as much. Well, I will no longer waste any more time writing to you. unless you divest your stubbornness and open your mind. You are a sad case, Peter. No matter what I write, it will have no effect on you, will it? Because you are ignorant and only listen to one person, your wife.
His father then gave one final quick response. Elliot, you really have an awfully lot to learn. I am sorry you feel that way. With love, Dad. It does seem quite clear that his dad still cares for him and wants to make things right between them. After a few weeks to think about things, he decides to email Elliot once again. Dear Elliot, I hope you are well. Things were very upsetting the last time we saw each other, and obviously everyone feels a bit hurt. I thought your email to me was very well written, although the message was particularly difficult to take. But after thinking things through and allowing time to settle emotions and thoughts, there is perhaps some real truth in what you have said, and perhaps I have been a little overly defensive to the love and support I know Samaya has brought to the whole family. For the record, Samaya really wants to mend this as much as I do. I would love if you can tell me how hurt you feel about it. Why not list it out, and then when I know how you feel, perhaps we can mend all of this. I don't want to live my life without her, and I don't like being alienated from you, as I love you very much, and I love her very much. I would love to start over and take a fresh look and see who you are today, and where we are today. As you know, I went to see a therapist and he's a really good guy. His name is Greg Stickler. Anyway, he could help us through this. If you're willing, you could tell him everything and not me, and then he will help you communicate your feelings. I can hear you going, oh, he's a doctor. Dad thinks I'm a lunatic like you wrote. That is not the case. He's a therapist, not a psychiatrist. And none of us think you're nuts. My biggest wish is to see you happy and thrive, and I will do all I can to get there. The first step is to find out how you feel, and then we can make things better. Lots of love, Dad. Elliot then responds saying,
Hello, the way you and your wife have behaved towards me of late has been very unfair, especially considering all the anguish I've been through this past year. Yes, you have been extremely defensive and loyal to your wife, and she uses that against me. She has always treated me with disdain. I can give you several examples if you wish, but since you are so obstinate, I feel you would disregard them like you've always done, and don't go listing down all the good things she's done for me. I've heard them too many times. All the favors she has done was so she can appear to you as a good wife and win your loyalty. If she actually cared about me, she would not have said all those horrible insults to me these past years. Here, I'll give you one example. She once told me that my sweet little brother Jazz will be having sex at the age 16, just to spite me. How wicked. I've told you this before, but of course you defended her, and just a few weeks ago she reported me to the police. I agree it will be best for all of us if we mend these issues, but even so, we need to find a way to keep it from repeating like they always do.
Now in Elliot's manifesto he mentions visiting many psychologists, but never mentions the man named Greg Stickler, so it's unclear if he did visit this therapist or not. But it does look like his father actually cared and wanted to fix the situation. Aside from that, Elliot ended up meeting Philip and Addison, which would result in a very long argument between Elliot and Allison, with Philip staying out of it, but having to put up with the whole thing all day. Addison then said something to him that would torment him and haunt him deeply forever. He said no girl in this world would ever want to fuck you. Hearing these words come from someone else like Addison really sunk deep for Elliot, especially since he already felt that way. He then stopped seeing them, and his only friend left was once again James. Later on, Elliot discovered that the beach party his mother hosted previously was actually a private beach belonging to a man with a net worth of over 500 million. When he discovered this, he wanted her to marry him, thinking that being part of a rich family and having all the money would bring him out of his miserable and insignificant life. He then asked his mum to marry him, and she always refused, saying she wouldn't marry again after what happened with his father. Elliot then said she should sacrifice her well-being for the sake of his happiness, and of course such a selfish comment only offended his mother further. After some time, Elliot then reaches out to Samaya and attempts to move on from their bitter past. He says,
Hey Sumaya, the situation we're in is not a very pleasant one. I know I've been rude to you and I apologize for that. How about we just forget about everything that happened and move on? I am trying to be a positive person now and I think we can get along. I really want to end this quarrel that's going on between us and I think you do too.
Samaya, on the other hand, didn't take too kindly to this email. She had spent 11 years trying to be a parent figure for him and received nothing but negativity from it, and she no longer wanted anything to do with him. She replies saying, "It is not because you decided to say sorry that it makes everything alright. It is not because you decide to say you're sorry that I have to welcome you with open arms. I have done that for the last 11 years, and I have only been treated with disrespect. I will explain. The last time I saw you and your mother in Morocco, Maka Hatija ended up in hospital. That was the last straw. You didn't even bother writing or showing that you cared. Instead, you carried on with your mother, insulting me and writing to Jinx, Reina, and your father to put them against me. It didn't work, so now you'll say you're sorry. So if we roll back 11 years ago, I will tell you what I have done and what I got back from you and your mother. Every time that I tried to explain that you needed to listen or do something, you would tell me that your mother said you didn't have to do anything I say. Every time that I would try to make you do something, and in exchange you would get a reward, you said that your mother said it was corruption, therefore you wouldn't do it. Every time that when you got a bit older and you were addicted to the games, and I tried to monitor you because I said that you would end up isolated with no friends and no social skills, which is the case now, you said that your mother allowed it, and that I wasn't your mother and had nothing to do with you. Every time that I asked you for your help around the house or with anything else, you refused and said that was my job, not yours. Every time that we wanted to have a family joyful time together, like going to the movies, beach, restaurant or park, you would say, how about not? And when if we still went, you would make our lives hell, so we stopped going altogether. Every time that I had an argument with your daddy, it was because of you. Every time you manipulated words that I would say to your mother and your father, and created a very stressed relationship between us, and many more horrendous situations. I never taught Jazz to hate anybody. He calls your mother Mama Chin. I was the one to teach him that. And what did your mother teach you? To hate me. I cannot have that anymore. I was the one who proposed to your father that we should have you every other week, not every other weekend, so that he can really know you even after realizing how difficult a child you were. I still tried to be close to you. I never tried to be your mother, but I treated and loved you like my own child. You have made my life miserable for 11 years, and now I want to put a stop to it. I have tried to reach out to you and your mother for years, buying you things that you like, caring for you when you're sick, cleaning after you, making sure that you are on time to school no matter how far I had to go early in the morning, cooking the food that you liked. I did this to show you that I loved you. I didn't do it for your daddy or for anyone else. I did it because I wanted to, and because I wanted you to know that I cared, and you were always safe with me. Nothing ever happened to you while in my care. I also cared when sometimes I had to discipline you by sending you to your room, but you never wanted to acknowledge my authority as a caring stepmother, and I know where that comes from. For all this, you, when you grow up, you ended up calling me a fucking bitch, and making a move as if you were going to hit me. You have brought me such sadness that right now, I would like you to stay as far away from me as possible. I have warned you that this would happen. I cannot have Jazz see me as angry as you made me. You always pushed and pushed me away. Now I am away. It is very hard for me to forgive all the abuse I have been going through, from you and your mother, to be called cruel, abusive and other names, to be criticized with every move I make in my own house. I have to put a stop to this and end to this very, very abusive relationship. Now you need to know your father loves you no matter what, and of course you guys will still see each other, and I hope we'll have the most wonderful relationship. from now on that you have decided to be a positive, normal person. I am very happy for you and your father, but this has to happen without me. I have thought about this for very long and have come to this decision. I have spoken to many friends and psychiatrists, and every single one of them told me to keep away from a situation that is destructive for me, Jazz, and your father. You shouldn't call your father a coward. It has nothing to do with him. It is my decision and nobody tells me what I should or not do. And this has been the case since I've known you. I don't call you names. I don't call you names with other people like Jinx, your father, or anybody else. Yet you do in your own mother's words and your own. This is a dysfunctional, angry, crazy house. So why would you ever want to come here? I would stay away if I were you. And for your mother, if I'm an angry, crazy, sick, abusive person, how could she have let you come back over and over again for the last 11 years? Now I'm saying enough is enough. I don't want any more abuse from you or your mother. Please feel free to show this letter to your mother. She might be able to say sorry to you. Please try to let this situation rest and don't push and push your father. It won't work. Get busy with other things in life and forget about me. I am not the cause for your unhappiness. Happiness is a choice, not given. Thank you for your understanding and keeping away from me. All the best for you, and wish you all well for your future from the bottom of my heart and from far away. Sumaya Rodger. If the information and telling of events in this email from Sumaya is accurate, then it clearly shows the bigger picture of events and how she was always trying to be there for Elliot. Yet he was always twisted and stuck in his own world, only able to find faults and negativity out of everything that happens. This also tells us that how he portrays certain events and individuals in his manifesto might not be as accurate as it seems, seeing as it's all told by himself from his perspective, which, as we have seen this far, is a selfish and self-caring perspective from an unstable individual. It seems quite clear from the emails that Elliot twisted words from Sumaya's mouth and his own mother's mouth and attempted to cause disarray between the family and try to be rid of Sumaya. Despite his selfishness and difficult behavior, she put up with him for many years and tried to be a good stepmother, but he just refused to have any of it. At the beginning of summer, he finally got his driver's license, and his mum just received a new car from Jack, meaning she could give her old one to Elliot. Being able to drive to any place he wanted gave him a new sense of freedom that he never felt before, and with that he decided to restart college again. He read about Moore Park College online and found that it was a smaller campus that was much more aesthetically pleasing and had a lot more beautiful girls than he ever saw at Pierce. This sealed the deal for him, and he decided to register for a summer class at Moore Park College, once again feeling a renewed sense of hope. But just like before, it wouldn't last very long, as Moore Park soon became a place of loneliness and despair. He would walk around the area seeing many good-looking couples where he dreamed of walking with his girlfriend. Watching the others experience it while he could only think about it was like a living hell for him. In class was no better. There was a cute girl who always sat next to her boyfriend, who was an obnoxious guy with a buzz cut. Every day his envy grew, and he constantly glared at them with pure hatred. One day, Elliot's mother suggested that he could become a writer since he had some talent in writing. It was strange to hear, but he started to wonder about the idea, thinking he could write an epic fantasy story that will get made into a movie and make him rich. He thought if he became rich, he would definitely be attractive enough to have a beautiful girlfriend. He then wrote a summary for 3 different stories, and after showing 2 of them to his mum, she said either one of them would make a good movie, which increased his confidence. For the next few weeks, he poured all his energy into this goal, in making these stories work. But he ended up reading many articles saying that chances of a screenplay were very unlikely, and even best-selling authors and screenwriters didn't get rich until their 40s and 50s, and Elliot didn't want to wait that long, so he decided to forget about the idea. After seeing the same couple in his class every day, he couldn't take it and decided to one day drop that class completely, realizing his mum would be disappointed and that everything he had was basically hers, so she could take it away if she wanted. To avoid this, he tried to get a job to make up for dropping his class. After coming to accept that she will no longer receive child support, Elliot's mum decided to call Peter in hopes he would be able to help paying for Elliot's car insurance. She writes, "Peter, I am writing to you to ask that you make this small contribution towards Elliot's further education by paying for his auto insurance. It will be $310 per month. You can send me a check for $310 payable to Automobile Club of SC." During this time, Peter was still trying to recover from his financial crisis. After his film didn't go as planned, he writes back saying, "Chin, I would love to help, but I am in a crisis. I can't even write a check right now, and all my credit cards are maxed out. As soon as the situation changes and I start getting money again, I would be delighted to help out. I am doing everything I can to get to that place, so please bear with me. Best, Peter." At this point, you can start to see that Chin is using Elliot to emotionally manipulate Peter. She replies, "It is sad you continue to opt out of Elliot's needs. It is no longer acceptable for Elliot. Fathers provide for their children. They would even borrow, beg or steal to provide for their kids, to prepare their son ready for life, give him tools to succeed. Elliot is very disappointed with you and I don't blame him." It was clear to Peter that she was trying to use Elliot to get to him. He responds, "It's funny how you only communicate with me when you want money." After this, Chin then goes in even harder, using Elliot to get to Peter. She writes, "PS, I told Elliot I'm done with you. He is done with you, but I will write in response for him, to hopefully make this happen for him. He agreed that I should respond." Peter was extremely unhappy to hear this. He replied one last time, saying, "Listen, Chin, I am not sure you understand the meaning of crisis. Stop kicking me when I'm down. Right now I have $55K in credit card debt, no money in my bank, defaulting on a $950,000 mortgage. My mother gave me $1,000 for my birthday and I paid you $500 for Georgia out of it. I am working 7 days a week for 12 hours a day, trying to get out of this hole. You could have thanked me for getting you a cheaper rate of insurance. I didn't say I wasn't going to help. I can't right now. I have $350 left for food till the end of the month, until a check comes in which has been postponed every week now for the last 3 months. What do you want me to do? Send over my bank statements to prove that I am in a crisis? What is it you don't understand? The C, the R, the I, the S? The next I or the next S? Elliot, don't listen to your mother's manipulation. I love you and want to help you, but I am in a crisis. When I have got through it, I would be delighted to help. Now please just send me some love and good words instead of kicking me when I'm down. Both of you. Elliot, as soon as I have begun to recover from this crisis, I will be there for you." Elliot then sent an email to his grandma Jinx telling her how he started college and was now driving, and asked for some money. She sent him $500 and Peter wasn't happy after finding out. He went to Jinx for this, thinking that it was his mother's idea. He sent Chin an email about the issue. Coming to his mum's defense, Elliot then responded with a very long email to Peter, some of which reads,
"Dear Peter, guess who? It's your son. Yes, you have another son, an illiterate one at that. Search your feeble mind and I'm sure you'll remember. Now are you daft or just thick-headed? I suspect both. You actually think my mother is using me for money. Well, I always thought you were a bit stubborn and stupid, but I didn't expect this folly from you. Let me enlighten your obstinate mind on some truths, if that's possible. Though I guess it doesn't hurt to try. It was I who first requested allowance from my grandma because I need money for college, something you promised me quite some time ago. Oh, did you forget? Anyways, I asked my mother to send an email to Grandma Jinx to confirm that I am going to attend college, for if she receives an email from both my mother and I, she would be more inclined to help. You claim that my mother is manipulative and conniving, yet you believe she would attempt to pull off a foolish stunt like that. You're contradicting yourself. Even if she is fool enough to try such a farce, why go through the trouble? She has a decent paying job, unlike you, and many rich connections. An extra $120 a month wouldn't be worth the trouble. You cannot blame me for my harsh words, Peter. It's the truth. If you even consider me a son, you would have at least tried to speak with me in the past 3 months, knowing what struggles I've been through, but no, you wouldn't even do that. Afraid of my voice, or did your dominant wife command you to never speak to me? In the past 3 months, the only squeak I've heard from you are your angry, irrational emails you send my mother, and yes, she shows them to me as they concern me, and I am an adult. This reeks of Sumaya's manipulation, to be sure, but that is just a suspicion. I would not be surprised, though, because from my experience with you and her, she has but to say the word and you turn into her raging dog. Honestly, I do not know what you see in the woman. You cow down to her every whim. Is she even a good lay? From the way she supposedly walks around the house naked all day. I'd say she gives you quite a tease, though her naked body wouldn't be much to look at. Oh, and every summer she flies off to Morocco and spends all your hard-earned money, leaving you in a cold, empty bed, not the kind of wife I'd want, let alone worship with unrelenting vigor. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. Think about what I've said, sweet father. It will do you good. I wish you good health, which is something you probably lack, having to deal with that woman all day, and a very happy belated birthday.
Now, after speaking with his skills counselor, Elliot was offered a job and immediately decided to sign up without hearing the details about the offer. After starting the job, he realized it was a custodial job, where he had to clean offices and bathrooms. Immediately, he thought there was no way he would ever degrade himself to such a level. The very next day, he called to announce that he was quitting. He decided that college would be more beneficial, as he could learn while being there. Although pressured, he decided to call his mum and tell her the news, hoping she wouldn't be upset and kick him out the house. To his relief, she was very understanding and said she'll continue to support him. As his 19th birthday came around, he received a new higher spec laptop, so he decided to install World of Warcraft once again to see how it runs. He realized once again how lonely he was, and as he tried to gaze into the future, he couldn't see himself fulfilling his desires, so he resorted to playing Warcraft to give himself a break from the world. James then contacted him and invited him to play with 2 of his other friends, Steve and Marc. As the next semester at college began, Elliot only managed to sign up for 1 class, political science, but promised he would do at least 3 in the next semester. Both of his grandmas sent him money to help him with expenses, and he saved every check in case his life becomes too drastic, as he says. One day after class, he decided to grab a bite at Panda Express. While eating his food, he noticed a teenage couple in the queue kissing while waiting for their order. Elliot couldn't believe that a guy younger than him had a girlfriend, so he followed them after they left the restaurant and poured his drink all over their heads and quickly ran back to the store. After this incident, he became worried that he may have broken the law, and since he was always afraid of breaking the rules, he decided to head to Yahoo Answers to explain what he did and if it was against the law. He then asked the same question with different wording multiple times.
Will I get into trouble for dumping a drink on someone's head? Could I get in trouble for dumping a drink on someone's head? Could I get in trouble for dumping a drink on someone on the street?
He then said,
Guys who are half white, half Asian. Are girls attracted to guys who are half white, half Asian? Would you date one? Why or why not?
He then answered some questions from some other people, when a girl posted, bullied by boys so much I can't even think about them anymore. Elliot replied,
You're mixing with the wrong type of guys.
When a 20-year-old said, I want custody of my little brother, Elliot said,
You're 20. That's way too young to have custody of a child. 20-year-olds can't even take care of themselves yet. Most 20-year-olds still live with their parents.
Another person asked if 5'8" is too short for 16. He got a little annoyed at this one and said,
Are you an idiot? That is very, very tall. I am 19 and the same height as you. I fucking hate it when people younger than me are taller.
Someone asked, "Is it okay to live alone?" He responded,
It is hell. And it's very sad because some people have no choice but to be alone.
This one made him really jealous. Someone asked, "Is it okay to flirt with other girls if you have a girlfriend?" Elliot said,
No, it's not, you spoiled, ungrateful douchebag. Some people would kill to have a girlfriend and you're taking advantage of it, you depraved jerk.
Another question that was asked was, do women desire men sexually? And do they get sexual pleasure from men and the essence of men? Elliot responded with,
No, they don't. I'm a man, well, legally I am because I'm 19, and women have never even talked to me.
Another girl asked, how do I choose which person to date? He replied with,
The best choice is the one who is a nice, quiet gentleman.
Now at the time Justin Bieber was just getting really popular, and Elliot had a special place of hatred for him, as he was getting the attention of many girls. One question asked, why do so many guys hate Justin Bieber? Elliot replied,
Because of slutty whores like yourself who are obsessed with a guy like Justin Bieber who you don't even fucking know. There are so many decent guys out here who try so hard just to get one girl. It's not fair.
And another question by someone else, why do people hate Justin Bieber? Elliot replied,
Because we find it ridiculous how all these girls are obsessed with him when so many other guys out there have to try so hard just to get one girl. It's unfair and it's unjust. Justin Bieber is a thief who steals all the attention of girls from all the nice, decent guys out there.
He then went on to YouTube and made multiple different accounts, just to spam a bunch of negative comments on any videos relating to Justin Bieber. He then made a profile on the Plenty of Fish and OkCupid dating apps, where he lied about his ethnicity and his height. Yet somehow it seems that he was unable to get a single date in his life, even though he tried using these dating apps. In October, Grandma Jinx came to visit the US, staying at Peter's house. She then forced them to make up and move past their grudges over lunch. He then went for a walk with his grandma where he took her to some of his favorite contemplation spots.
Hey, Elliot Rodger here. Right now I'm just taking a walk through the park in this really nice, secluded area. I'm just contemplating about my life and how unfair it's been lately. How it's been unfair for the last 8 years, ever since I hit puberty. Ever since I started desiring girls, but they never desired me back. Life has been a living hell since then. I've been all alone.
After returning from the walk, his grandma forced him to come inside and face Samaya. Surprisingly, they were willing to start again with Elliot, and promised to invite him over for dinner occasionally. After some time, he attended one of these dinner invitations. It was very awkward, but they tried to keep the topics of conversation positive. Elliot thought it was nice to see his brother again. However, he was shocked at how much he had grown in only a few months, and that he was now able to hold conversations. He seemed very social, which began to worry Elliot, as he thought to himself, he might turn into one of the people he despised and envied so much. Since staying cooped up in his room all day would only increase his depression and feel suffocating, he began to go out on night drives. He soon learned not to go on night drives during Fridays and Saturdays, as these were the days teenagers were partying and having fun.
Hey, Elliot Rodger here. I'm at the very end of Del Playa Street in Isla Vista. It's a college town near UCSB. And I'm about to embark on a tour through Del Playa Street. It's 10:30 p.m. and at this time, the street erupts in countless college parties. I'm going to drive through it and show you all how sick and evil this town is. Basically, how sick and evil young people of my generation are. Especially girls. Because, they walk around in their revealing clothes, showing off their sexy legs, all these hot, beautiful blonde girls. And yet they go for absolute obnoxious pricks instead of guys like me who actually deserve them. I'm a nice guy, but these girls go for bad boys. I'm going to show you all these popular kids enjoying their awesome lives while I've had to suffer in loneliness for the last 2 years. So yeah, right now I'm at the very end of the street, right by the beach. And here we go. This is the quiet part. We'll be approaching some college students soon, walking about in their little cliques, acting as if they're better than everyone else. The sight of them just pisses me off. It fills me with fury and rage. See, look at these douchebags right here. Go around in their groups acting superior. So look at all these popular people partying, enjoying their lives, while I've had to suffer. Yeah. They would never invite me to join them. I've lived here for 2 years and I've never been invited to a party. See, look at these assholes. Let's give me this. Did you just see that? That guy was walking with such a hot girl. See, all these people here. Young, hot, blonde sluts walking around. All these beautiful girls who would reject me if I ever said a word to them. I hate them all.
At this time, Elliot decided to retreat to his room, jumping back on World of Warcraft for 2 weeks straight, with little to no breaks. However, he had noticed that the player base of the game had expanded greatly, and as a result of this, there were more normal people with good social lives playing the game, and it was no longer a sanctuary for him to hide in and seek comfort. He saw people bragging about their sexual experiences and using the term virgin as an insult in-game. As the last few days of 2010 were approaching, Elliot went to join his mother at the beach house. But as he got there, he saw Maddie and her boyfriend. He got angry that his mum invited them, and he ended up going for a walk for hours, only returning after they had left. The time had come for Elliot to meet up with his parents for dinner and discuss his future plans. They thought it would be best for Elliot to move out to somewhere new where he didn't know anyone, and that's when they decided he should move to Santa Barbara and attend college there while living with roommates. Elliot's father agreed to pay for his tuition as well as $500 a month for living expenses, while his mother pays for the rent and car expenses. Just when Elliot was about to give up on everything, this chance came to him once again, giving him some hope. On top of that, his father gave him a book called The Secret and said it will help him develop a positive attitude. The book explained the fundamentals of a concept known as the law of attraction. After reading it, Elliot believed he could visualize himself winning the lottery, and after a few failed attempts, he quickly lost all faith in the book and gave up on it. Elliot got together with James at a restaurant where they saw a young couple, and Elliot bursted out in anger, telling James how he wanted to make them suffer. To his surprise, James didn't share his thoughts of hatred. In fact, James was so disturbed by the things he was saying, he had to tell him enough is enough. This was the last day they spoke until later on, where they both attended Rob's birthday party and found themselves seated at the same table for younger people. There was one guy who was talking to all the girls, and James could see how angry Elliot was getting, so he tried to strike a random conversation to distract him. As the time to move was just around the corner, Elliot thought to himself that there were so many beautiful girls around that there was no way he wouldn't lose his virginity. If he couldn't lose it here, then there was no hope for him. After some more discussion, the lease was signed and he was set to move to Santa Barbara on June 4th. His mother was very adamant that he moved out on this date, and she said it was because she wanted him to settle in before college started. But he believes the real reason is because she wanted to get rid of him. This would free her from having to deal with him, even if it cost her an extra $900 a month. And after this, she will most likely never welcome him to live with her again. In preparation for this huge leap to start a new life, he started going to the gym for many hours, trying to improve his confidence, and shopping for new clothes. Around this time, Elliot decided to make a profile on a website called Teen Spot, which was like a forum for teenagers. He did everything that came to mind when it came to preparing for this new life, and after some time he concluded he was ready, but in reality he was far from it, and this new chance would turn out to be his last one. Elliot asked people to rate him, and he lost some confidence after receiving many lower ratings than he saw himself getting. One person commented that he was a 5 out of 10, and when he asked if he looked more white or Asian, someone said he looked Mexican, which really set him off. Shortly after, a profile called Hot Blondie 17 emerged and started giving low ratings to all other guys, but gave a 10 out of 10 to Elliot. After some digging, one of the moderators discovered that both this account and Elliot's had the exact same IP address, meaning that this was just another account he made to give himself a higher rating. As the time came to move, Elliot packed up his belongings and drove to his new apartment. The first day didn't go very well, as Elliot could hear students partying outside, and later that same night, he heard one of the neighbors engaging in sexual activity in the apartment above him. This enraged him and traumatized him. Elliot's new housemates seemed nice, but they often invited a friend over called Chance. Chance was black, and when he started telling the others about a blonde girl he slept with, this immediately triggered Elliot and made him more racist, as he was not able to comprehend why white blonde girls would like others and not him. He then asked all of them if they were virgins, and they all looked at him weirdly and said they lost it ages ago, leaving Elliot to feel inferior. Chance then told him that he lost it when he was 13. After this, Elliot went back to his room and cried, even calling his mum and crying to her on the phone. Later on, he wrote,
"How could an inferior, ugly black boy be able to get a white girl and not me? I am beautiful, and I am half white myself. I am descended from British aristocracy. He is descended from slaves. I deserve it more." I tried not to believe his foul words, but they were already said, and it was hard to erase from my mind. If this was actually true, if this ugly black filth was able to have sex with a blonde white girl at the age of 13, while I've had to suffer virginity all my life, then this just proves how ridiculous the female gender is. They would give themselves to this filthy scum, but they reject me, the injustice.
After the week, those 2 housemates moved out, and 2 new ones moved in, Daniel and Reed. Daniel was a very social person and often started conversations with Elliot, which he liked, and they got along fairly well together. When he reached his first class, he saw lots of girls waiting, but none of them even looked at him. After only a few days, he had already dropped his history class because he couldn't stand the guys talking to the girls. Elliot tried to be as social as possible, taking some shots and going for walks, hoping some girls would talk to him before he sobered up. The time came for him to transfer to his permanent apartment unit, the Capri Apartments. A few days later, his dad showed up and they went out to eat at a restaurant together. Upon sitting down at their designated table, Elliot noticed a darker-skinned Latino guy dating a hot blonde girl. Once again stirring his racism and his hatred, he stood up full of anger and prepared to pour his drink all over their heads, until he remembered his father was there, so he managed to contain himself. When he got home, he cried for hours. On the following day, he went to a Starbucks at the Camino Real marketplace, like he would every morning, but in front of him, in the queue, was a young couple kissing. The girl happened to be a nice blonde girl. Meanwhile, he was disgusted that the guy looked like a punk. He watched them closely, and as they left, he followed them, throwing his hot cup of coffee all over them. The boy yelled, and Elliot quickly ran to his car and drove away, filled with fear, yet excitement at the same time. He realized that he got some sort of thrill from causing harm to the young couple. He then spent the next 3 hours in his car trying to calm his nerves and regain his composure. This same night, he started searching disturbing things on the internet. He started reading about a man named George Sedini, who killed multiple women in his gym in 2009 after failing to date women. Later on, he wrote,
I wanted to do horrible things to that couple. I wanted to inflict pain on all young couples. It was around this point in my life that I realized I was capable of doing such things. I would happily do such things. I was capable of killing them, and I wanted to. They deserve it. The males deserve it for taking the females away from me, and the females deserve it for choosing those males instead of me.
He then spent the next 5 days in his room trying to forget what happened. But every time he looked out his window, he would see drunk boys socializing with pretty girls in the courtyard. And at that moment, a thought came to his mind that caused him great unease and anger. What if these people would be sleeping together later tonight? He started to fantasize about bursting into their rooms while they were doing it and murdering them all. As his 20th birthday came, he went back home to spend some days with his parents. After returning, he would then meet his new housemates, who were of Hispanic race and seemed to be rowdy low-class types. He then went to his room and panicked, realizing he will be stuck with them for a year. They then invited their friends over, who Elliot also didn't like, and one of the guys asked Elliot if he was a virgin. He said yes, and they began talking about how they lost it ages ago. He hated Angel the most, saying he had an ugly pig face. He ran to his room and punched the wall, causing the guys to all laugh at his reaction. The next day, he went to confront Angel, telling him that he is far superior to him and that he is low class, causing a physical fight between the two, which Ryan quickly broke up before it escalated. Elliot then called his mother and explained his situation. She agreed that he should move, and they found another room for him to transfer to, which only had one housemate. On one of the weekends, he came back to visit home and decided to go out to eat at Panda Express with James. While eating, some high school kids came in and James uttered the words, "We're fucked," knowing that Elliot would cause trouble. He then pointed at the nearby security guard for Elliot to refrain from making any foolish moves. Elliot then strolled out the building in shame, feeling defeated. He then told James about the different ways he wanted to kill those boys. saying he wanted to skin them alive. This left James deeply disturbed and disgusted, and Elliot then cried in front of him. That seemed to be the last of their friendship. James never invited him to come see him ever again. Now came the time for Elliot to move into the new apartment, feeling a sense of relief not having to deal with Angel and Ryan again. But as he moved in, he realized he had accomplished nothing in his life. The next class he dropped was maths after seeing too many couples kissing in the library. He just couldn't take it anymore. Elliot managed to make one friend in the apartment courtyard, a Chinese student named Andy Chang. Andy also wanted to make friends, and Elliot thought he seemed intelligent, so he decided to keep hanging out with him. After some time, Andy introduced Elliot to some of his other friends, although Elliot didn't view any of them as true friends, so he didn't open up to any of them about his struggles. After a few days, Elliot's new housemate arrived, Spencer. He mentioned Spencer was fat and unattractive, but they got along fine. That is, until he mentioned one time in a casual conversation that he used to have a girlfriend. After hearing this, Elliot couldn't be friends with him, and would soon come to hate him just for being around. He couldn't fathom how an overweight, unattractive guy, who was a year older than him, and smaller in height, could ever have a girlfriend. The only thing he could think of was that she must have been just as unattractive as he was. From the funds he was receiving from his mum and both his grandparents, he had a decent stream of income. In another attempt to improve himself, he went out and bought a pair of jeans for $200, as well as some shirts and a pair of Hugo Boss sneakers, and some Giorgio Armani sunglasses. This made him even more obsessed with his appearance.
I don't know why you girls are so repulsed by me. It doesn't make sense. I do everything I can to appear attractive to you. I dress nice. I'm sophisticated. I'm magnificent. I have a nice car, a BMW. Well, it's nicer than 90% of the people at my college. I'm polite. I'm the ultimate gentleman. And yet, you girls, you never give me a chance. I don't know why. I put a lot of effort into dressing nice. These sunglasses here were $300. Giorgio Armani. So I'll put them on. See? Hold on. Car. See? Look at how fabulous I look.
Elliot attended a get-together dinner for Thanksgiving back home. Surprisingly, James was there, and when he asked him why he was upset about an argument that happened a few months ago, James just said for him to keep his proximity. Afterwards, he went to England for a week to visit his grandma, Amma. She gifted him with a 22-carat golden necklace, which he thought seemed perfect to fit his current drip. After noticing many pretty blonde girls in England, just like California, he started to wonder if his life would have turned out different had he stayed in the UK and not moved to the US, thinking perhaps it could have been the environment. Unfortunately, he would never find out the answer to this. After arriving back, he regained the will to try again once more, this time feeling less hope. He met up with Addison and Philip and went to the Hollywood sign to watch the sunset. Afterwards, they went to the Getty Museum, and a few girls started checking Addison out, causing Elliot to get jealous. He asked Philip if any girls checked him out, and Philip said he didn't notice any. Elliot cried and ran away, leaving the two behind. Now back at Santa Barbara with some new drip, he tried to give it another go, even attempting to bring back his British accent to try and get girls' attention. The next night, Spencer brought a girl over, instantly enraging Elliot, who was ready to come at him right then and there. But he noticed he didn't find the girl attractive, so after he confronted Spencer and said to him he shouldn't be proud of being with an ugly whore, This made Spencer angry, and whatever friendship they had was gone. For the next semester he once again attended maths class, where he encountered a beautiful blonde girl named Brittany. But full of fear, he couldn't talk to her, and decided to check out her Facebook instead, discovering she had a boyfriend who just so happened to be one of the guys he despises the most, a tall muscular guy with a buzz cut. He immediately hated both of them and wanted to end their lives, screaming out loud to the point where Spencer would hear him in his room. After this, he had a revelation, coming to accept the fact that he was going to be a virgin for the rest of his life. He then dropped all his classes and concluded that there must be something wrong with the girls in this world, feeling as though they have a flawed sense of attraction. His mental health continued to decline rapidly from here onwards, and he just wanted to make everyone suffer. After researching about George Sodoni, he started to concoct his own plan of revenge, dubbing it the Day of Retribution, thinking to himself if he can't have the life the other students have, he will just take their lives away from them as punishment. He wrote detailed plans out in his diary, but tore them out in fear of having them discovered. Although he came up with this plan, part of him didn't want to go through with it. He still wanted a way out, and tried to think desperately one last time what he could do. He thought becoming a millionaire was the only way he would be able to get what he wanted, but didn't know how to achieve that either. Elliot went to a private Katy Perry concert with his mum, recording most of the event from the back. The very next day he went to the red carpet premiere of The Hunger Games with Sumaya and his father, which was an even bigger private event. He hoped this would help boost his confidence. Peter managed to become friends with the director Gary Ross and got them exclusive invites to attend the premiere. At the same time, Sumaya was filming a French TV series called Les Vrais, Housewives. As he walked on the carpet, he gave a cocky smile to all the fans, feeling as though he was above them all. After the event, he returned to Santa Barbara and realized he had no obligations, as he dropped all his classes, giving him all the time in the world to do something productive. He tried to come up with any idea that would make him into a millionaire. After all, in his own writing, he said he's an extraordinary, magnificent person, destined for great things. But he fell short of his own self-vision, and once again turned to the lottery to try and get rich quick, spending all his remaining money on lottery tickets, only keeping $5,000 aside in case he would have to carry out the Day of Retribution. In the end, he didn't win the lottery, causing him to sink further into the depths of despair. In a desperate attempt to reassure himself, he tried to contact James via Facebook, and James simply replied that he didn't want to be his friend anymore, and never replied again. He couldn't understand why James didn't want to be his friend, and James didn't give him a reason. To him, this was a big betrayal, and now he was truly alone in the world with no friends whatsoever, not wanting to see Philip and Addison again after crying in front of them. A few days later, he was roaming around Gersh Park, when a group of popular college students were playing football along with some blonde girls. They were having so much fun that one of the girls did a handstand and her stomach was showing, causing Elliot to get excited and yet angry at the same time, thinking that it was an insult to watch these people have fun when he couldn't, and he just couldn't take it. So he drove to a nearby Kmart and bought a super soaker, filling it up with orange juice and spraying all of them while screaming with rage as he does so. When the boys yelled and chased him, he ran to his car and drove away. After living with Elliot for some time, Spencer quickly saw fit to make a formal complaint about his harassment and how unstable he is, saying he has internal issues and is a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. He demanded that he or Elliot be moved to a new room with the utmost urgency, out of fear for his own safety. Elliot was transferred to apartment number 7 on Seville Street, which was the same apartment he first stayed in. After moving in, the new jackpot had risen to $120 million. and after seeing that the winner was from California, his heart started pounding. Then he realized he wasn't the winner. This very night, he threw a wild tantrum, screaming and crying for hours while swinging a wooden sword and a pocket knife. As he had an apartment to himself, he didn't have to worry about being heard. He turned to alcohol to try and ease his mind, drinking a whole bottle of wine and getting so drunk that he spilt some on his laptop and destroyed it, resulting in him having to beg his mum to buy him a new one, while making an excuse as to why it broke. When she sent him the money, he had to go out and collect his laptop, but it was out of stock in Santa Barbara, so he had to drive further and wait for it to be ready for collection. While waiting, he started searching for a nearby firing range on the internet to practice, knowing that the day of retribution is seeming more likely by the day. He was thinking he could never have what he wanted and was not going to be a creator, but he could become a destroyer. In September, his new housemates arrived, a curly-haired guy named Chris and an Asian American named John. Elliot became content living with these two as they were quiet and never invited any friends over. After thinking to himself, he decided to set the day of retribution to Halloween of 2013, but he realized there would be too many cops patrolling the streets, with everyone being out that night. As the next semester began, he didn't even bother registering for any classes. He had already given up hope, and now his only two options left were to get rich by winning the lottery, or to carry out his revenge plan. He saw the Powerball lottery had a very high jackpot, but seeing as it hadn't yet arrived in California, he had to drive all the way to Arizona to buy some tickets. So he did just that, while contemplating the meaning of his life along the journey. After all this, he didn't win. He drove to a nearby park and cried for hours. Feeling the need to talk to someone, he called the only people he had left, his parents, telling both of them that he realized he would never have a happy life, and they must be ashamed of him. His outburst left his parents so deeply disturbed that they immediately agreed to arrange for him to see a psychiatrist named Dr. Charles Sophie when he returned home for winter break. That was the last straw for him. He thought he was giving the world a chance, and it didn't work out. So now he would seek vengeance on the world by carrying out his day of retribution. He started searching disturbing things such as stabbing incident. Are there knives so sharp that if you touch it, you bleed? Modern torture devices. Guangzhou train station knife attack. He researched many disturbing things, trying to give him ideas for his own revenge plan. And then he concluded he wanted to buy a gun. He went out to a local gun shop called Galetta Gun and Supply and purchased a Glock 34 semi-automatic pistol, giving him a new sense of power, with him saying,
"Who's the alpha male now, bitches?"
He didn't attend the next Christmas party as he was no longer friends with James, so it would just be awkward. By the month of April, he had driven to Arizona 3 more times buying lottery tickets as his only source of potential hope to obtain the life he wants. But by the end of March, he had won nothing, and then he realized that he was never going to win or have the life he envisioned. He says,
It fully dawned on me that the life I had envisioned for myself would never come to pass. The children I would have in the future with a beautiful blonde girlfriend ceased to exist as if they were murdered. There won't be any beautiful blonde girlfriend for me now. No girl would be my girlfriend unless I had great wealth. I learned that from my life of being rejected. I was doomed to a life of lonely virginity.
For a while after this, he would remain confined within his room, not daring to go out as he couldn't stand seeing any couples. He started to go on the internet a lot, searching different things, and one of the things he did online was go on Wikipedia and edit the information about his grandfather, George Rodger, trying to make it more positive, which eventually got his account blocked. He also tried to remove the whole entry of Justin Bieber, as well as removing multiple photos attached to Wikipedia's search on foot job, suggesting that he likely had a foot fetish. For his plans, he decided to purchase a second handgun, a P226, which was significantly more expensive than the previous firearm he acquired. However, at this point in time, his money was of no concern to him. He had a decent supply from his family members, and now only cared to use it towards his evil plans. For the end of spring, he returned home and spent a lot of time with his little brother Jazz, taking him out for drives in his father's Mercedes. He watched Jazz play in the park, and it gave him some sense of happiness, as it reminded him of the only times he was happy in life, when he was still a kid with no worries playing in the park. He decided to once again meet up with Addison and Philip, going for a drive in his father's SUV. While driving, Elliot saw quite a few beautiful blonde girls, making him mad. He fantasized about running them over in his dad's SUV, and didn't care that Addison noticed his rage. Elliot started to upload more videos to YouTube, mostly posting about his life troubles and his so-called greatness. Elliot also had a second YouTube channel called Valfarium, which he used as his anonymous channel, mainly to post hateful comments and bring others down.
That thing is not beautiful. It's one of the ugliest babies I've ever seen. Can't help but wonder how much meth this stupid bitch smoked while she was pregnant to create that monstrosity. Wow, you're just a typical douchebag druggie. It's people like you who make this world such a horrible place. You will go to hell. LOL, your last name is Gonzalez. That means your dad is probably a gardener or a construction site laborer. And you're calling Swifty sad? Haha, shut up, you Mexican scum.
He hated all the men for being with the woman who he thought, for some reason, were all his. And even worse, he blamed all the women for everything he didn't have. And since they were what he desired the most in the world, he ended up resenting them and hating them the most. He thought there was something wrong with their brain and the way they think.
I've often made theories of the kind of guys that girls really are attracted to. After going to college for 2.5 years and seeing all of the horrific sights I've seen there, mainly all of the young couples walking about, the guys who actually have the hot girls, I've concluded that females have a very flawed and perverted form of sexual attraction. Like every time I drive around the area of my college, or just walking through my college, I see that all of the beautiful girls go for the big, obnoxious, boisterous, beefy jock types. It's the same in high school, though I never, thankfully, got to experience the brutality of high school because I was homeschooled for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Though I did get a small taste of that, and that traumatized me for life. Anyways, yeah, they go for things like brute strength and, tough alpha male behavior. And that's just so wrong, because this isn't the Stone Age anymore. Girls should be going for intelligence, sophistication, men who are civilized, men like me.
He thinks women should not have the freedom to choose who to mate with because they just choose degenerate men, which will lead to degenerate offspring, which would hinder the advancement of humanity. He says in his own words he is like a god, and he often fantasizes about having a supernatural power to destroy everyone. As he spent most of his time on the internet, he began searching for others who shared his views on the world, and that's when he came across the website PUR-Hate, a platform for the incel movement. He knew that the website was very depressing, but he found it to be insightful at the same time, using it to further justify his beliefs and way of thinking. For his revenge plan, he decided to say it for some time around November 2013, giving him around 5 months to prepare and live the rest of his days as he does so. This really left him on edge. He really didn't want to have to do this, but he couldn't find any other way out. He saw no options for him in life and felt this was the only choice. He also didn't want to get arrested, so he knew he would have to end himself before getting captured. And he didn't want to die. He thought to himself, if only one woman gave him some attention, everything would have been fine, and none of this would have to happen. He also visited a bodybuilding site called bodybuilding.com, and in the forums he read a post saying that the average penis size was around 5.5 inches, which caused him to reply with,
The average is 5.5. I thought it was 4. This is very unsettling.
Later on, he saw an Indian guy with a hot blonde girl and got extremely angry. He took to bodybuilding.com to post about it and see if people would agree with his thoughts. A few people responded. Some of the thread is as follows.
Today at my college I saw this short, ugly Indian guy driving a Honda Civic, and he had a hot blonde girl in his passenger seat. What on earth is up with that? I would climb Mount Everest 10 times just to have a girl like that with me. I drive a BMW coupe and I've struggled all my life to get a girlfriend. What's wrong with this world? Does anyone else get disturbed and offended when you see sights like this? Someone make sense of this ridiculousness.
Racist post reported.
I wasn't being racist. I mentioned his race to make a point.
It would probably help if you didn't look like you were still in elementary school.
You're just jealous of my beautiful eyes and cheekbones.
I see you got rid of those serial killer ESC videos on YouTube.
My parents discovered the videos, so I temporarily took them down. They will be back up in a few days, along with more videos I've filmed.
Lol, no, I do not get offended, but I also don't struggle with women. He probably has a lot of power and wealth, so she is drawn to that gold and money.
Did you even read my post? He was driving a Honda Civic, an old model Honda Civic at that.
I was merely trolling. You must be new to the internet. It did come off like you had a little bit of India hate though.
Well, I find it unjust that a white girl would choose him over me.
So how do you know they were actually seeing each other?
I'm trying to convince myself that they were just friends or something, so that I can actually get some sleep tonight. Even if they were just friends, it still pisses me off that she is his friend and not mine. This world is ridiculous. I should be the one with the hot girl, not him. I thought some people would agree with me on here, but you're all just a bunch of trolls.
Lol, at your jealousy, you're pretty much offended that someone has something money can't buy. A good personality. Pretty pathetic, don't you think? There are plenty of girls that are single that would be great for you, but you're just missing sleep, thinking about that one person who doesn't even know you exist.
I have a magnificent personality. The girls just never give me a chance to show it to them. They are such hypocrites. They ignore me, but they give all those losers I see at my college a chance. What's wrong with the female gender? They must all be mentally ill. This world is so cruel. I can't believe it's gotten to the point where I have to post online about the fact that I can't get girls. This isn't the way my life should be, and this isn't the way I want to appear to the world. I should be the one that gets all the hot girls. That's how I want to appear to the world.
As you can see, nobody on the website could take him seriously, and one user expressed that it was clear he lacked personality, something he couldn't buy with money. But Elliot didn't seem to understand and just blamed females for not giving him the chance to show it. When Elliot next came home, his parents introduced him to his new counselor, a man named Gavin who was only slightly older than Elliot, so he was more of a friend than anything else. But when they were at a restaurant eating, Elliot noticed some girls checking Gavin out, causing him to not like Gavin and not want to see him anymore. Back at Santa Barbara, he has a new counselor, a man named Carlin. During a walk, Elliot decided to ask him if he had slept with any girls at Isla Vista. Carlin said 4. This answer really got to Elliot, and he couldn't comprehend how it was possible, especially since he thought Carlin was quite ugly. The next counselor was actually a blonde girl named Sasha, who was only a year older than Elliot. He thought it was a bit pathetic that the first girl he would ever interact with in Santa Barbara would be someone who was paid to talk to him, feeling as though it would have never happened otherwise. Despite that, Elliot quite enjoyed his time with her and wasn't going to miss the opportunity to be in the company of a nice blonde girl. Eventually she had to move out of the area, but the time spent with her, once again, gave Elliot a small glimmer of hope. He started working out in his room again and even attended some summer classes at college, saying that he would give women and humanity one last chance to accept him. The very next week, he dropped all the classes again after seeing women talking to other boys instead of him. On the day before his 22nd birthday, he came up with one final idea to lose his virginity: a college party, claiming he was giving the female gender one last chance to provide him with the pleasures he deserved. But this night would turn out to be one of the worst.
Hey, Elliot Rodger here. Right now I'm going on a little tour through Isla Vista on a Friday night. This is when all the college parties happen. Look in there. There's a party happening right now.
As he arrived at the party, he was already drunk, taking a few shots too many just to give him the courage to walk in. He then helped himself to some beer, which was an even bigger mistake. Afterwards, he noticed an Asian man talking to a white blonde girl and got extremely angry, as he always blamed the fact that he was half Asian as one of the reasons girls didn't like him. But there he saw a full Asian man talking to a girl. He bumped his shoulder on the guy and hurled an insult as he went by. The Asian man and the woman just thought he was too drunk and told him to get some water. He climbed on a wooden ledge and looked down at everyone partying around him. Suddenly, he stuck his fingers out and pretended to shoot them all, laughing with joy as he did so. Eventually, others started climbing on the ledge, socializing with girls right next to him. Feeling insulted that nobody paid attention to him, he started insulting them, and to entertain his drunken self, they insulted him back. This filled Elliot with rage, and he immediately started to take his anger out on the girls that were present, attempting to push them off the 10-foot ledge. He failed to push anyone over, but instead the guys pushed him over, causing him to fall down onto the street and snap his ankle in the process. He could no longer walk, so he started limping on one leg. Then he noticed that the Gucci sunglasses his mum gave him were gone, so he stumbled his way back, but arrived at the house next to the party and demanded to know who took his sunglasses. They responded with hostility and came and dragged him onto their driveway, and then they beat him up. He wanted to kill them all right there and tried to throw a punch, which only got him beaten up more. Eventually some bystanders broke the fight up, giving him the chance to get up and retreat. This was the first time Elliot had ever been beaten up in his life, and he thought it was one of the worst humiliations ever. Everyone saw it, and he wouldn't be able to go out in public again. He was even more angry that no girl offered to help him, with him even going so far as to say one of them should sleep with him to make him feel better. He called the only people he could, his parents, and even his sister, who he didn't get along with, crying to them on the phone. While crying, he noticed his golden necklace was also gone, making him cry even more until he passed out on his bed. When he woke up, his leg was swollen and he could barely move. His father came to take him to the hospital, but he was worried that he may be implicated after threatening to kill those boys and trying to push girls over the edge. So he came up with an alternative story to tell the police if he had to. The police did interview him and he told them lies and tried to get them to punish the boys. But of course, they all told their side of the story, and eventually the case was dismissed as there was no evidence to prove anything. They gave him a cast for the next 6 weeks and told him he may even need surgery, making him feel even more humiliated and inferior, as he would now have to live as a, quote, cripple for the next 6 weeks. It was also now his 22nd birthday, and he felt nothing but defeat to show for it. His mum was nice enough to go buy him a new golden necklace, after seeing how heartbroken he was from losing the old one. In August, he went into surgery so he didn't need to walk around with crutches. Then after resting for the next week, the thought came to him. He had no options left and he would have to carry out his day of retribution. He wrote,
It fully dawned on me that I would now have to bring about the day of retribution. There was no other hope. I mused that once I descend upon Isla Vista, armed with my weapons and my burning hatred, I would definitely make sure to target the people who lived in that house I was attacked in. The plan was to destroy the entirety of Isla Vista and kill every single person in it, or at least kill as many popular young people I could before the police arrive and I'd have to end myself.
The setback from his broken leg meant that he would have to postpone his revenge plan and push it to spring of 2014. After these events, Gavin came to see him and suggested that he moved out of Isla Vista, but obviously, Elliot refused. Elliot's parents then arranged a conference with a psychiatrist where Elliot was prescribed some medication, risperidone, which was used to treat mental health conditions such as schizophrenia and autism. Elliot researched it and decided it was the worst possible thing for him to take, and quickly disposed of the medication. While back home, Elliot met Addison and Philip one more time, driving around Griffith Park. But after noticing young couples around the observatory, he had the desire to run them over with his father's SUV, which he already planned to use as one of his weapons on the day of retribution. After arriving at the beach, Philip had fallen asleep, so Elliot went for a walk with Addison, telling them that women are mentally flawed and need to be contained. Addison didn't show any reaction to his statement and simply told him that he was an intelligent person and shouldn't waste it by doing anything rash. Elliot said he won't, and that was their last conversation. Back at his father's house, Elliot would get into an argument with Samaya once again, after she was boasting about Jazz being signed to act in his first TV commercial. She said to him that by the time Jazz was Elliot's age, he'll most likely be a very successful famous actor, and that he would have everything he wanted in life. This sent Elliot into a rage, confirming his suspicions that his younger brother will indeed turn into one of the people he hated most and become an enemy. He wrote,
That was the day I decided I would have to kill him on the day of retribution. I will not allow the boy to surpass me at everything, to live the life I've always wanted. It's not fair that he has the chance to have a pleasurable life while I've been denied it. It will be a hard thing to do, because I had really bonded with my little brother in the last year, and he respected and looked up to me. But I would have to do it if I can't live a pleasurable life, and neither will he. I will not let him put my legacy to shame.
Elliot knew if he was going to end Jazz, he would have to end Samaya too. But that was something he looked forward to and felt no difficulty in having to do so. But his father was another story. He didn't want to confront him or involve him, so he decided to set the date for a time he would be out of the country. In order to boost his confidence, his mum bought him a new car, a BMW 3 Series Coupe, which he had always wanted. Having a nicer car than most of the other boys around his age made him feel more confident. In the autumn semester, 2 new Asian housemates moved in, and Elliot found them to be unbearable, making so much noise and feeling like they were the biggest nerds he had ever seen. He felt as though he would have to end their lives too on the day of retribution to get them out of the way, but he enjoyed the thought of stabbing them while they slept. Elliot started to visit his mother's house more often, and to his surprise he discovered that his little sister now had a boyfriend who was half white, half Mexican, and immediately disliked the guy upon meeting him. Elliot's hatred went through the roof when he heard his sister doing it with her boyfriend in her room. hating both of them with a passion. As he stood there listening to the whole thing, he wrote this event out with a lot of detail in his manifesto. Soon Grandma Jinx returned for another visit. Elliot took her out for some coffee and felt a feeling of sadness as he said his goodbye, knowing it would most likely be his last time seeing her. Elliot often enjoyed watching the sunset.
Just took a nice walk in the park. Check out that sunset. Damn, that's a nice sunset. Spectacular. I love how it shines on my car.
But then he saw a young couple kissing under the sun, ruining one of the things he enjoyed the most. His mum planned another trip to England, but this time he decided to stay at her house by himself and not go. He then discovered that his sister's boyfriend went with them, making him infuriated, feeling as though his mum betrayed him and replaced him with this outsider guy. He felt as though she should have taken his side and not let the guy come with them. But then he stated that his mother is a woman, and women are all mentally ill. There was no way she would understand his point of view. As it was already 2014, Elliot had to plan a new date for his revenge, thinking Valentine's Day would have been perfect, as it was the day that made him feel the worst. But this would give him less than a month to prepare, and he needed more time. After a lot of thought, he concluded the date will be Saturday, April 26 of 2014. He planned the first phase of vengeance with him luring as many people into his apartment as possible and silently dispatching them, knowing that his two housemates will be the first. He also wanted to use their heads for part of his final phase, with the first phase representing his hatred towards men. The second phase will represent his hatred towards women, as he planned on attacking the hottest sorority in the area, the Alpha Phi sorority. He planned to sneak in at 9 AM and do away with as many women as he could before setting the place ablaze. The final phase will be his ultimate showdown on the streets. But before all this, he needed to drive down to his dad's house and kill Samaya and Jazz, all to deny Jazz of living a good life and surpassing him. After this, he will switch vehicles to use his father's SUV, as it would be able to take more damage, as he plans to ram people and shoot the ones he misses. If he drove by a house party, he would shoot anyone nearby, before finding a suitable place to end himself. The final week arrived before he would commence the retribution. He had uploaded many videos explaining his views on the world, and saved his ultimate video for a few minutes before the plan, as it had too much details in it. One of his videos has been featured throughout this video. It's titled "Why Do Girls Hate Me So Much?", where he attempts to show that he is the perfect, magnificent, supreme gentleman. He expected to get a response from a girl on the video, but instead only received comments from guys making fun of him.
A beautiful environment is the darkest hell if you have to experience it all alone. And sadly, I've been alone for a very long time. I've been attending college in Santa Barbara for about 2.5 years now. And in those 2.5 years, I've experienced nothing but loneliness and misery. And my problem is girls. There are so many beautiful girls here, but none of them give me a chance, and I don't know why.
As the day drew closer, All he had to do was finish writing his story, which was his manifesto, a 137-page document detailing his life story and sequence of events. The document was named My Twisted World. The only other thing left to do was finish filming his final video. On April 24th, 2 days before the day of retribution, he woke up with a terrible cold, and he rarely ever got them. He wondered if this was a sign that he shouldn't go through with his plan. In addition to this, he found out his father returned home 2 days earlier than planned, as if a greater force was trying to stop Elliot from going through with this plan. He rescheduled the date to Saturday, May 24th of 2014, giving him exactly 1 more month to prepare. After 1 week of uploading his videos on YouTube, he heard a knock on his door. It was the police. Elliot was filled with fear, thinking someone discovered his plans and it was going to be all over. But apparently that wasn't the case. His mum had seen all his videos on YouTube and was deeply disturbed and worried. So she called a health agency, who then called the police to check on him. After telling them it was a misunderstanding, they left without further questioning or searching his room. He felt a sense of relief knowing they were gone, and his plans remained intact. He temporarily removed his videos, planning to re-upload them before the new retribution date. And so he continued with his plans and filmed his final video. During Elliot's last few days, he decided to try and enjoy what little life he had left. He spent the days driving around and listening to music. He also spent a lot of time at the shooting range practicing for his plans. On the 23rd of May, Elliot woke up knowing that the retribution would commence tomorrow, and this would be his last free day. At approximately 7:38 p.m, Elliot went into the local Isla Vista Starbucks and purchased his regular favorite, a triple vanilla latte, with his card, and then enjoyed his drink as normal. At this point, everything seemed as usual, and nobody would suspect he was preparing for something horrific. Later in the evening, he noticed something inside him suddenly snapped, and he could no longer wait. He decided his plans will be carried out right here and now. He waited for his 2 housemates to leave the apartment so he could begin preparing for the first phase of his plan. Meanwhile, he reattached some of his torn-out diary pages and finished writing his final entry.
I had to tear some pages out because I feared my intentions would be discovered. I taped them back together as fast as I could. This is it. In 1 hour I will have my revenge on this cruel world. I hate you all. Die.
As he eagerly awaited for his housemates to return to the apartment, he searched online, "quiet, silent kill with a knife," to prepare to ambush his housemates. He then concealed himself in the dark hallway while rehearsing the act of ending their lives in his mind over and over again, simulating the event. The first to return to the apartment was Wei-Han Wang. Elliot came from behind and stabbed him 15 times and slashed him another 23 times all over. Once it was over, Elliot pulled him into the far corner of the bedroom, then covered him with a blanket and a towel to keep the body out of sight. Chung Hong soon returned to the apartment afterwards. Shortly after entering, Elliot ambushed him, stabbing him 25 times and slashing him 12 more times. Elliot struggled with Chung, but after some time, he too passed away. Elliot then dragged him and threw him on top of Wei-Han's body. Surprisingly, a third man came and entered the apartment, one of Wei-Han and Chung's friends, George Chen, who wasn't one of the housemates. He just happened to come by to visit his friends at the wrong time. Unfortunately, he would suffer a worse fate than the previous 2. Elliot stabbed him a total of 94 times and slashed him over 10 times all across the body. Everything in his body was punctured, and so a third victim was added to his list. Elliot tried cleaning the blood with a towel, but it quickly got soaked and it was too much for him, so he just left it. Afterwards, Elliot remained inside the apartment for a while, trying to regain his composure after coming to terms with the heinous acts he just committed, knowing it was now too late to turn back, as his life would soon be over either way. So he continued with his plan. Elliot then uploaded his final video to YouTube titled Retribution, leaving his thoughts and ideology for everyone to see.
Well, this is my last video. It all has to come to this. Been through college for 2.5 years. More than that, actually. And I'm still a virgin. It has been very torturous. College is the time when everyone experiences those things such as sex and fun and pleasure. But in those years, I've had to rot in loneliness. It's not fair. You girls have never been attracted to me. I don't know why you girls aren't attracted to me, but I will punish you all for it. It's an injustice, a crime, because I don't know what you don't see in me. I'm the perfect guy. You will finally see that I am, in truth, the superior one, the true alpha male. You are animals, and I will slaughter you like animals. I'll be a god, exacting my retribution, and all those who deserve it. And you do deserve it, just for the crime of living a better life than me. All you popular kids, you've never accepted me, and now you'll all pay for it. And girls, all I've ever wanted was to love you and to be loved by you. I've wanted a girlfriend. I've wanted sex. I've wanted love, affection, adoration. But you think I'm unworthy of it. That's a crime that can never be forgiven. If I can't have you, girls, I will destroy you.
He then titled his story/manifesto that he wrote about his life, My Twisted World, and emailed it to a bunch of people, including his counselors and parents. And Elliot's mother quickly saw the manifesto along with the final video and called Peter and the police to inform them of the situation. Due to a last-minute change in Peter's schedule, he would remain in the US with Samaya and Jazz, meaning that Elliot wouldn't be able to follow through with this portion of his plan to kill Samaya and Jazz. So he just abandoned this part of the plan and continued. This saved them both from a tragic fate. Upon hearing the news, Elliot's mother, as well as Samaya and Peter, all got in their cars and started driving towards Santa Barbara. Currently, the time was just over 9:15 p.m. Elliot drove over to the sorority house he had set his sights on, the Alpha Phi sorority house, and started banging on the door aggressively. But wisely, no one came to answer. Losing his patience, he went back to his car and slowly drove off. He then spotted 3 women walking outside the sorority house from across the street, and slowed down by the sidewalk, drew his gun, and fired shots at all 3 of them. Catherine Cooper was shot 8 times, with 3 shots proving to each be fatal, 2 in the chest and 1 to the head. Veronica Weiss was shot 3 times. The fatal bullet punctured her heart and lungs. Bianca DeCock was shot numerous times, causing her to fall to the ground, although she was still alive. It was now 9:27 p.m, and this is when the first 911 call came in.
We have 3 girls, 3 women.
They got shot?
Yes.
Are you okay? Hold on one second. What did the vehicle look like?
It was a blue sedan, I don't remember.
Elliot then sped off and made a 3-point turn into a driveway on Pardall Road, passing a coffee shop and firing one round into it. Luckily, the establishment was closed at the time, but a group of friends was standing on the corner outside the IV Deli Mart, and as Elliot drove by, Christopher Michaels Martinez, who was one of the guys standing on the front door, looked at Elliot's car when suddenly a single bullet pierced through his chest, proving fatal. Everybody else instantly scattered into the market to take cover as more shots were fired, and it's all captured on the CCTV camera in the store. As Elliot continued driving down Madrid Road, he swerved and hit a man named Jin Fu. The man was struck with such force that his body flipped into the air at a high speed. But miraculously, Fu's only injury was a small bruise on his left calf. He continued ramming people and firing shots, and hitting another man and woman in front of 6533 Trigo Road, causing injuries to both of them. They were just about to enter a shop called Pizza My Heart when they saw a dark car heading towards them. Elliot rolled down the window and let out a sadistic, creepy laugh before saying some words they couldn't understand, and that's when he fired shots. The couple ran into the pizza shop to take cover. One bullet penetrated cleanly on the man's left arm, while another just grazed the woman's right arm. Elliot then drove to the intersection of El Embarcadero and Sabar Tarde. He saw a female cyclist who was just casually riding her bike, assuming the sounds she heard were fireworks and crackers. That is, until she felt a sudden pain in her leg and looked down at it, noticing she had been shot twice on her thigh. She quickly ran into a 7-Eleven and asked for help. He then continued driving and shot at some more women walking by, who were also unsuspecting of what was going on. Luckily, he missed. Another woman who started running just in case what she heard was gunshots, but Elliot pulled up close to her and said, "Hey, what's up?" before quickly aiming and popping off a shot. Thankfully, he missed even though he was at close range. Uncertain of the situation, the woman thought it might just be a prank. That is, until he let off another one that just breezed by her face. She quickly turned and ran to a nearby home. While avoiding more shots, she then sought help inside. Officers rushed onto the scene after receiving word that Elliot's BMW was heading west. Elliot drove past and shot at Deputy Martinez, a police officer who was dispatched to find him. Elliot missed the shot and Martinez fired back at his BMW before radioing for reinforcements. A man walking with two women heard the commotion but didn't think much of it and continued casually walking down the sidewalk when suddenly a car rammed them out of nowhere, hitting the man and another man on a bicycle in front, knocking them both into the air, one of them flying over 50 feet high. Yet they both survived. A man exiting a 7-Eleven after getting some late night snacks was walking when he saw the BMW stop right near him, and Elliot started shooting right at him. The man ran into someone's home while they were standing at the door with the door open. They closed the door behind them and tended to the man's injury after he was shot twice, before he could receive proper medical care. Another two men on skateboards felt the full force of his BMW as it drove into them, knocking one of them through the windshield of another parked car, injuring his arm and leg. Another victim got shot in the back multiple times before being rescued by the same house that saved the other guy. He too survived. Eventually, 3 sheriffs caught up to him and engaged in a gun battle while driving side by side. Elliot got shot in the hip while driving. Elliot sped up and knocked another man off his bicycle, Keith Chum, who then flew into the air, before Elliot drew his gun and fired up at his temple while he was in the air. It's now around 9:35 p.m. and the BMW crashed into a parked car shortly afterwards, just next to Camino Pescadero. Officers quickly converged to the vehicle within mere seconds of the crash, only to find that the suspect was down after a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. The whole attack lasted approximately 8 minutes, and in such a short time 6 people had been killed and 14 others severely injured. The police discovered over 500 live rounds of ammunition inside his vehicle, along with another pistol and 2 knives. One of the police officers pulled out his ID and confirmed that it was indeed Elliot Oliver Robertson Rodger, aged 22. Peter, Samaya and Chin had yet to arrive in Santa Barbara, but instead were contacted on the phone by police mid-journey and informed of the horrific scene. Although they saw his final video and read the manifesto, they still found it hard to believe that Elliot would be able to kill someone. The police then made ways to his apartment to do a sweep of the perimeter and confirmed that the premises is clear. They were shocked when they found both roommates, as well as another deceased in the corner of the room. They also found several more weapons, including a 10-inch zombie killer fixed blade and an 18-inch machete, plus a printout of his manifesto and the final handwritten entry. Peter and Chin arrived around 1 a.m. and met with 2 of the detectives. The detectives didn't provide much information at the time, but they regretted to inform Peter and Chin that Elliot was no longer alive. They decided to meet up later and discuss the incident further, where his parents told detectives about his troubled life and negative perspectives to almost everything. Search warrants were necessary to inspect Peter and Chin's homes to find out everything about Elliot's crimes. They were then authorized to access his social media accounts, including Facebook, YouTube, and PUR8, and all other platforms he was on, as well as his phone, discovering that his gallery was filled with thousands of selfies. After compiling all the evidence and facts relating to the incident, they came to the conclusion that Elliot's mental health had been deteriorating for some time now, and as such he was the only person involved in the crimes, so nobody else was punished. Had he been captured by the police, he would have been charged with 6 counts of murder, 3 counts of murder under special circumstances, 20 counts of attempted murder, 16 counts of shooting firearms from a motor vehicle, and 3 counts of carrying a loaded firearm in public, as well as numerous other charges. With Elliot's fate already being decided by the end of the retribution, there was nobody left to punish, and with that, the case was then closed. Philip, who later saw what Elliot had done on the news, was left in disbelief. After hearing about the manifesto, he felt nauseous, as he wondered if Elliot emailed him the manifesto too. In an interview, Philip stated, "I have been literally sick every day since this happened. I can't eat and I'm struggling to sleep. I just can't believe I was friends with a psychopathic mass murderer." Elliot was incredibly shy and awkward his entire life, and it was clear he had issues. But there was never anything to suggest he was capable of this. He never displayed anything even bordering on violence and aggression. If I'd had even the faintest idea, I would have done something. Back in January, he posted something slightly worrying on Facebook. It wasn't extreme or aggressive, but he seemed depressed. I can't remember it word for word, but he was basically saying how lonely he was, and that no girls would ever talk to him. I actually posted a comment to try cheer him up, but he deleted it. I was a bit worried, so I called his mum Chin to make her aware of it. She told me they were doing all they could to help him, that he was seeing a psychiatrist and was taking medication. I honestly had no idea he was being treated for mental health problems, but when his mum told me that, I felt reassured and thought that's it, case closed. The issue is being dealt with, and his parents loved him and they never pushed him away. When I saw what happened on the news, my jaw dropped to the floor, and I was shaking in disbelief. Then I read the manifesto. It makes me sick to think just 9 minutes later, he shot those girls. I could never have possibly imagined anything like this was going to happen. What people need to realize is you cannot rationalize or explain this. He obviously had a serious mental illness that he was able to hide from the world. Everyone is focusing on Elliot's lack of success with women, but they need to appreciate he was unable to communicate with anyone. He was so shy and painfully awkward. He had a boring personality and didn't talk. He would never dream of approaching a girl. He just expected them to come to him, which they didn't. Even if any of them ever had, it wouldn't have lasted long because he wouldn't chat to them. Andy, who became Elliot's friend in the courtyard, was also in disbelief, but felt like this seemed possible given Elliot's behavior.
Me and my group of international friends, we just want to get him into the group and trying to help him. He was really upset about why is the world so unfair to him, and like, oh, I'm a good-looking guy, and why are girls falling for those ugly fat guys?
I don't know why you girls aren't attracted to me, but I will punish you all for it.
Sometimes I don't want to hang out with him because he's so depressing. And we watched a movie with a group of friends. It's called Chronicle. After the movie, he told me that, oh, I want to dominate the world. Like, while the shooting was going on, I was in a bar with my friend. I saw a picture of his car. So I was really shocked. I'm like, dude, this is Elliot's car. I started to see some news feedback on Facebook, and I was totally shocked. I was disappointed. I think he's a really lonely guy. I mean, if he had received more love, then I don't think it would get that bad.
Elliot's former roommate Chris also tried to invite him to hang out.
I had a short conversation with him when I moved in, said like, hi, how are you, you know, all the regular things. And then throughout the year, there was a few conversations here and there, but he mostly kept to himself. Now I know why it was, but it just seemed that he just didn't really have anyone that he was close to. He would talk about things that aren't going well in school and that things just weren't working out. He talked about how he'd go out and see all these girls hanging out with the guys, and he couldn't understand what exactly they were attracted to, and how he would try and do the same thing and it never seemed to work out. The Isla Vista culture is very much focused on going out, having a party, and then, you know, taking a girl home with you and things like that. So I can understand that not, you know, it hurting and making him feel lonely if it doesn't work out, but not quite to the extreme that it was taken.
The next evening after the attack, local students and community members gathered at the park and held a candlelight memorial service to honor all the victims. A few days later, on May 27th, 20,000 people attended a memorial service at UCSB Stadium. The woman who survived the shooting outside the sorority house, Bianca de Kock, went on TV to speak on her experience of that hellish night.
I see his face, he smiles at me, and just starts shooting.
He smiled at you and he starts shooting.
Mm-hmm. Like a smirky, grimacy smile, but it was a smile. He was just, he wanted to do this. He looked happy about it.
The girl Elliot had a crush on back in elementary school, Monet, that he stated ridiculed him and bullied him, was shocked to find out she had been mentioned in his manifesto. After stating that, she never bullied him and didn't even remember him at all. Her father spoke at an interview in her place, saying she was 10 years old for God's sake. She can barely remember the guy. He's a sociopath. That's got nothing to do with my daughter. She hasn't seen him since school. How is a 10-year-old girl going to bully a 12-year-old boy? Maybe the girls she hung around with did poke fun at him, but they were kids. My daughter was not a bully. She's devastated over the whole thing. If you think about it, he could have killed her. He could have come after her. Elliot Rodger's entire family received numerous death threats the next few days following the events that transpired, forcing them to constantly move houses to stay safe. Another close source said, "The adults can deal with this, but for people to be targeting Elliot's younger siblings, is absolutely disgusting. They have done nothing to deserve this and are not involved with Elliot's actions, nor were they aware. This is the last thing they need to deal with. Their lives are practically ruined by actions that were beyond their control. Their brother's actions. 89-year-old Grandma Jinx spoke about the whole thing, saying, "He was a very disturbed boy. He lived in California, but of course I'd known him. This is just one of those very tragic things. I don't want to talk about it anymore. This is a rather difficult time." Elliot's father, Peter, was then interviewed.
Every night I go to sleep, I wake up and I think of those young men and young women that have died and that were injured and were terrorized. And my son did that. My son caused so much pain and suffering for so many families. There's no way I thought that this boy could hurt or flee. I mean, this is the most unbelievable thing, Barbara. What I don't get is we didn't see this coming at all. My son was a mass murderer. And then I think about the victims and I think about what he did. And I'm trying to process it. He had very few friends in elementary school because he was a very, 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 very shy boy. And we just felt that that was his issue. When we realized he had social issues, we brought therapists in to try and help him integrate into society. He was never formally diagnosed, and there was a suggestion that he might have been high-functioning Asperger's. And, you know, these were because of traits. For instance, there was a certain OCD about him. There was a certain, you know, like he'd always put his plate in the same place. He'd like to wear the same clothes every day. Elliot really was a very high-functioning human being. If he was sitting here right now, you would think what a polite boy he was, but yet he had this thing going on inside of him. Something happened to him, and then I think he became very mentally ill. What I don't get is we didn't see this coming at all. None of us. I think he had a condition. He had a very seriously advanced mental condition, and I think that whatever would have happened, even if he got a girlfriend, wouldn't have been able to have made him into the happy human being we wanted him to be. I was meant to have a meeting in London, and he wanted to know the dates.
Why?
He wanted me out of town so that he could come and murder his brother. And Samaya, I think he was scared that he would hesitate, and I can understand that. This is the American horror story, or the world's horror story, is when you have somebody who on the outside is one thing and on the inside is something completely different, and you don't see it.
Many people thought it was good for him to speak out on the incident on behalf of other parents, telling them to watch out for their children's behavior, while others weren't so pleased and believed that he only agreed to do a full interview to save face and protect his career, while not actually caring much about what happened. Some people even believed he was clout chasing with the interview to boost his own presence. Peter then met up with one of the victims' fathers, Christopher Michael Martinez, and they had a discussion in a coffee shop somewhere in Santa Barbara. Although both fathers were on the opposite ends of the spectrum, they managed to work out their differences and unite together, swearing to both work on preventing incidents like this from occurring in the future. Christopher's father said, "We plan to work together so other families such as ours will not have to suffer as ours have." Both Richard and Peter expressed their criticism towards American gun laws. Peter then said, "We are crying out in pain for the victims and their families. It breaks our hearts on a level that we didn't think was possible. It is now our responsibility to do everything we can to help avoid this happening to any other family." Some lawmakers wanted the police to be investigated as well, due to the fact that the police had come out to Elliot's apartment prior to the day of retribution, on behalf of his mum's request, after she saw his disturbing YouTube videos. The police failed to watch the videos for themselves, and also failed to inspect the database to see if Elliot had recently purchased any firearms, nor did they attempt to do a sweep inside his apartment. They left very quickly after just a few seconds of conversation, not thinking that Elliot may have easily been hiding what's going on. In early September, legislators of California state passed a new red flag law, enabling judges to seize any firearms from people who are deemed a danger to themselves or anyone else around them, and was signed into law by the governor, Jerry Brown. The next year after, on May 23rd, many people turned up to UCSB to attend another candlelight ceremony to honor the victims once again. Elliot's mum, Lee Chin, gave her deposition regarding the case, reporting that Elliot's roommates were bullying him, and as such she requested that he be moved to another room, but knew nothing beyond that. She also spoke out to the media, telling them, "I feel the world's attention should be focused on supporting the victims' loved ones and remembering the lives that were tragically lost." Afterwards, everyone on PUR Hate tried to sever any ties and communications they may have had with Elliot Rodger. The site was then closed, but most of the users transferred over to a new platform called sluthate.com, which later became redpilltalk.com, and recently in 2019 the servers got shut down and stopped responding. The US Secret Service described the massacre as a case of misogynistic extremism, whereas the International Center for Counterterrorism, The Hague, described it as misogynistic terrorism. Elliot's mother, Lee Chin, would then dedicate herself to working with children with mental health problems to help them have a better future. Elliot's younger sister, Georgia, graduated from University of San Francisco with a degree in media studies, and now also works for a company that promotes creative activism. Peter, Samaya, and Jazz have all moved out to Morocco, where they continued their former jobs. Jazz has now grown up and changed his name, and works as an actor pursuing the same path as his mother Samaya. As you can see, Elliot lacked basic essential social skills to communicate effectively with anyone, especially being worse for women. He also lacked the confidence to even try. On top of that, he had many untreated conditions, and his family and people around him failed to notice. He also didn't care to seek help or maintain proper relationships with the very few people who did reach out to him or tried to help him. And because of his hateful behavior and attitude, he was disliked and bullied for most of his life. His family failed to notice any potential dangers within his behavior, and he didn't feel like he could have a close man-to-man conversation with his dad. Even worse, the very clear and disturbing videos he posted to YouTube and other platforms were all disregarded and not taken seriously, even though they very clearly hinted at hateful and criminal intent. He didn't need to have to go through with this plan, nor did he need to end himself. If he had just acted differently and made an effort, and tried communicating more instead of expecting everything to come to him, he could have had a better life. He also stopped taking his medications and refused to take other medications that were clearly prescribed to him for a valid reason. He also stopped seeing his counselors and psychiatrists. Many people seem to believe he was led to this as a result of being rejected by women, but in reality, he was never rejected. He just simply never spoke to any or asked any out, and this is confirmed within his manifesto accounting for his life story, along with what his parents and friends have said about him. Since no woman approached him first, he immediately assumed every woman had rejected him, but never actually made an effort to talk to a girl, which means it was all a mere assumption, and there was no issue with his appearance or height or race. As proven in his manifesto, he knew shorter men than himself who had a girlfriend. He also saw full Asian guys and other races with girlfriends. And after the news published his face all over the internet, many women were puzzled, posting on Twitter that they were surprised he couldn't get a girlfriend. So in conclusion, Elliot Rodger is not somebody to be admired or looked up to. but instead this story is more suited to advise you to what you shouldn't do. Unfortunately, other members of the incel community have instead praised him as a hero, dubbing him with the name Supreme Gentleman, and this has inspired them to commit mass murder. Alex Manasson and Chris Harper Mercer are two incel members that were reportedly in communication with Elliot Rodger, and a few years later they both massacred many people. Alex's final Facebook post read, "All hail the Supreme Gentleman, Elliot Rodger." This is the story of Elliot Rodger. Let it be a lesson to not follow in his path.